OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
It's 7:30. It's Friday morning. Good morning to you. Welcome to OTB AM. Shane Hannon, good morning to you.
Morning, Adrian. How are things?
We haven't seen him in a while, but Colin Bowie, good morning to you.
Hola, mi amigos. ¿Qué tal?
You're hiding there behind the laptop. Great to see you and hear from you.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
You are the producer,
Great.
so it was your decision.
No, thanks very much. I really appreciate coming on. What?
People have been in touch in their droves, Shane, over the last...
Yeah.
I noticed that no one had. A
couple of weeks.
It was really upsetting.
No
one noticed. But I was just behind the scenes, just making sure that OTB AM was running smoothly, and helped brilliantly by the esteemed members of OTB AM, Jojo, Emma, Kathleen, Cameron, Paul Shaughnessy. Everybody helped out while I was away finding myself.
Haven't won an award or anything.
I was finding myself, and by finding myself, I mean getting gum surgery.
Right.
Which I would love to hear the comments if anyone has had gum surgery. Or the text 087 918 180. I got a gum graft, taking skin from one side of my mouth and putting it on the other side, and it required several stitches, and it meant that for 2.5 weeks or so I wasn't able to laugh or express myself in any way, and everybody here had to put up with that.
Cork people don't laugh anyway.
No.
Don't they not?
Cork people don't laugh, he says.
He doesn't laugh at anybody's jokes apart from his own, you see, Shane, the thing. So.
No, I find a lot of people funny.
You internalise a lot of that very well.
I find a lot of people funny.
No names.
Yeah, a lot.
Good.
Yeah, I do. I enjoy a good laugh.
It's good to have you back. That's the main thing. That was really what I was trying to express there. I mean, thanks for giving us all the detail about your thank you and well done to everybody list, and also the full details of exactly what happened while you were away.
The Oscars.
Well, nobody asked. Nobody asked. So I just said I'd give the information, because if nobody asks her, they'll never know.
True. You know? You were wearing the retro gear as well this morning, Colin?
Yeah, Kathleen was saying I was getting dressed up especially for the show. That's incorrect. I just saw it in my wardrobe. It called to me. Happy Friday feeling. I thought it's nice, it's light, and it's comfortable. And I was thinking to myself, I almost castigated myself in a fashion sense. Geez, I never wear this.
Yeah, it's relatively offensive is what I'd say. Like,
in what sense?
It's not easy on the eye.
No, actually, that's incorrect, because baby blue and white are psychologically calming. Incorrect. They're calming colours. And Jojo just said, I love it. I could hear that. He's not even in my ear. And
Jojo, would you say it's outrageous to look at? I don't mean in a.
I'd actually take Jojo's thoughts on fashion ahead of Adrian's.
I'd say now, I haven't even looked at the YouTube comments, but I'd say, would you get to the football? The football was unbelievable, but last night was insane.
Great top column says Spectre Core. Adrian is a hater. There you go.
Spectre Core is a tough man to please. Like,
he is.
His comments can go either way.
He's often mad about my breathing on the microphone as well. So apologies.
You have to breathe.
You do have to breathe.
Yeah.
Apologies though for breathing.
Han Japan says Comerford with the top comment of the day, the first comment of the day, I should say, and I love these storylines, I must admit, because they're classic World Cup. Everybody gets unbelievably passionate about whether the ball was over the line or not for 24 hours. Everybody's got a view on it. Have you seen this angle? Have you seen this picture? I heard this person say that. And I guarantee you, I'll ask you next week and you'll be like, was that the ball to Japan? Who got knocked out because of that thing?
Look at that.
There's an angle of that column dropped into WhatsApp last night that conclusively confirms that the ball, full of the ball, I mean, the bit of the paint hadn't fully gone over the line. So now, the only thing about that picture is, who knows if that's 90 degrees over the top, and so it could also still be at a slight angle. The other thing that I think is and obviously, look, there's loads of fallout, and we're going to talk to Jasmine Baba about it a little bit later on, and I'm sure it'll be a big theme across the morning about Germany's exit, is obviously the knock-on of all this. But the team obviously went and looked at it last night. The referee had a look at it on the pitch.
Yeah.
And they conclusively decided that the ball was in play.
Yeah.
And here we are, 12 hours later, still unable to conclusively say with a confirmed 90-degree angle or some way of absolutely saying for certain the ball was still in play. How did they make that decision without having absolute concrete evidence?
I think they were able to make the decision because I actually think Emma zoomed in there and showed us probably the best angle of it.
But we don't know that angle.
No, but that angle. See that one there that Emma has on screen now.
So I could guarantee.
No, that is over. That's touching the line.
No, but listen, I could take. We don't know where the angle of the camera,
it's the
photograph is coming from.
It's the curvature of the ball. No, okay. It's the curvature of the ball. See this video now from Twitter. This is kind of proving it.
That looks.
This is proving it. Okay, yeah.
There,
so that's the angle that we saw on TV, right? So that's the one angle that we saw before they went to VAR. So it's like, that's definitely out of play, definitely.
Yeah.
So this guy now on Twitter He's going to go over the ball, so that's the angle then from above. That's the area
so
the curvature of the ball is there.
He's providing us a lovely 90-degree angle from above, but I don't know.
But the angle is vertical, so it's above, so it's going to show.
Unless it's 90 degrees, you can't tell for sure.
I would say you can tell pretty well from that, because
you can tell pretty well, but you can't tell for sure.
Peter Walton was on ITV afterwards, and he said the rule is the curvature of the ball, so that literally the shape of a football would allow it that extra leeway that it goes over the line.
Not disputing any of that. I'm just saying that we don't have a 90-degree angle over the top of the ball to say for sure.
Well,
you have to accept that's a statement of fact.
Not to spoil Jasmine Baba's segment, but I was talking to Jasmine.
Go ahead anyway.
And she said, look, that the German fans are not blaming that because they think, okay, that's fair enough. I think the problem was that, like everyone was saying, it was reflected in commentary, was that we weren't shown a conclusive angle as the viewers, so we didn't know why. Yeah. We didn't really know why the goal was allowed. After the on-field decision was no goal, went to the VAR and said, there's no way they're going to give this, because that one angle we've seen, it looks like it's out of play. And then suddenly the goal is given, and then what happens is everybody jumps on the conspiracy bandwagon. It's like, what is happening with this World Cup? I'm
certainly on the conspiracy bandwagon, but I am on the how did they make a decision if we still can't tell? We still don't have a conclusive angle.
I think that angle tells me the ball was still in play.
We don't know.
But I mean,
it's only because we weren't. I think this wouldn't even be a debate this morning if they had shown a few angles and then the decision was the curvature of the ball.
Did the VAR have different angles than we had? Maybe they had more conclusive angles.
Well, that is exactly the point.
But why wouldn't they show us?
Exactly. So I don't think they had, and I think that they took a guess at it.
Why would they take a guess? If you're in doubt, leave it out.
I think they went for the less catchy, we were in doubt, but screw it, we leave it in.
Which is the opposite.
Yeah.
So why would you do that?
It's justice for Frank Lampard 2010.
Well,
the Germans had it coming.
To mind, yeah.
The Germans had it coming.
And Pedro Mendes against Roy Carroll, yeah. Look, it's been coming for a long time. But I think that the only problem was that there wasn't enough transparency for the viewer, so it's reflected online. There's a lot of people saying, like, how did they give that decision? And it felt like people felt left out, basically, excluded from the decision making, and there's nothing that angers people more than that.
I also think there's room to go full Roy Keane and all this with the Spanish goalkeeper. What was he doing? Like, I think he was actually at fault for both goals. The first one was really soft hands, chocolate hands, and just sort of petered on past, like, very, very limp. And then the second one, and he's like, for the second one, he gets totally carried away with the way where the ball is going, and like almost this sort of clownish style jump into the goal when the ball is still in play, like the little clownish sort of jump into the goal that was totally needless, because if he stands his ground, he either catches that ball or he bats it away.
Tell you who wouldn't have done that? David De Gea.
Yeah, I was saying that's what I thought that's where Adrian was going with this. Get David De Gea. Call him, bring him in.
Not really. I mean, he might have done an equally styled clownish.
I think Simon's distribution is very good, and Luis Enrique is a fan as a result. And I suppose he's more flexibility to his all-round play. But I'm never massively convinced by his goalkeeping anyway, regardless of the game last night.
The beautiful thing about Spain finishing second in that group is it takes them out of the Brazil-Argentina side of the draw until the final. So instead of having a Brazil-Spain semi-final, we will now potentially have a Brazil-Spain final, which we all want. That's the final, isn't it?
You see, the thing, I said this before, we were on Tuesday maybe even, and I would stand by this all day long. I love the little bit of an upside in a group stage, even in the last 16. I love that. That's a bit of the secret ingredient in a World Cup or one of these major tournaments. But by the time you get to the final, just give me the big guns.
Yeah, okay.
I don't really want any of that.
We're unfortunately in agreement, because I was going to say
maybe.
Last 16 is the last slot I want for an upset.
Quarterfinals. Last 16 upset maybe into the quarterfinals, but after that, absolutely. I want my 4 semi-final teams and the finalists to be big dogs.
There's nothing more disappointing than an underwhelming semi-final.
Adrian was obviously
semi-final.
He was obviously happy days when Scalacci scored against Ireland in the quarterfinals in 1990.
I must say, I'm in terms of the punditry, I'm flitting between all channels. I'm sure the same as everybody else. Yeah. ITV, I'm probably enjoying more than most. I think it's a good setup, really good lineup, punditry, commentary, studio, the whole lot. I'm enjoying that. But Damien Duff is brilliant. I need more Damien Duff in my life. He's been brilliant. Watching him last night, there's absolutely zero BS about him. Any question he gets asked, you know the way at times with pundits, and I'm not saying on this show, but at times with pundits when they get asked a question, they're just filling time.
Yeah.
Right? They've got a minute to fill. They're giving you whatever old stock they have in their head. I don't really have an opinion on this, but I have to say something anyway. You just know with him, if he's nothing to say about it, he'll just give you a very quick, brief answer, and away he goes. There was one point last night he was sat back, hand in the pocket, just sort of chilling out. He's got a great demeanour about him. He's obviously gone down the managerial route, and he'll stick at that for probably decades. I wouldn't be in the slightest bit upset if he just gave up all of that stuff and went punditry full time.
You know what?
It's
a really interesting point. And Adrian, you texted me last night to remind me Duffer's goal, because I was watching the ITV post match and I was like, I nearly dropped the remote because I had to go over so quickly because I forgot that Duffer was on. And what's so interesting about him, Adrian, is like, okay, Roy Keane's box office on Sky and they love him for it because of his opinions. And I was thinking, geez, I wonder would Damien Duff translate to a British audience in Sky Sports? And I don't think he would, because I think he has this, as you say, incredible ability to cut through the BS, but at the same time, he's not very Hollywood or box office, and almost purposely so. I feel like in a production sense, like you'd sit him down and you'd be like, look, Damien, face the camera when you're talking and kind of be expressive and, you know, make it look like you're very interested, and he just like nod, be like, yeah, okay, that's fine, yeah. And then he goes on air and he's just like, I'm just going to do my own thing. And that's great.
We seem surprised that Duff is like this as a manager. But was he not? I think his post-match interviews when he was a player were fairly up to the point.
Yeah, but I, as a player, I not expect it, but I would say it's more understandable that a player wouldn't be in the mould of, well, this is a new career for me, whereas Duffer, as I know, he's like doing great stuff at Shells, and he has a big future management if he wants that. But the other side of it is this is pretty much the other career he could have, and he has a take it or leave it approach, which is so authentic, it's admirable, and it's not disrespectful, because he's still respecting the people he's on with, but it's in a sense that I'm just going to do this my own way and take me or leave me, and if you don't want to invite me back next week, that's no problem at all. And there's something very endearing about that.
He's like the human embodiment of the Slaven Village comment. Do you remember that one?
What was that again?
To be honest, I don't care. Remember that?
What's that? Was that
We're having a big debate about some equally controversial incident. And there was
was brilliant.
Slaven, what do you think? And he sort of gave a half opinion, and the presenter called him out, and he went, to be honest, I don't care.
He's Watford manager now, isn't he? Slaven.
Oh, yeah.
He's back in football.
Recently,
it's Slaven.
Yeah, Kai Havertz picked up man of the match in the Germany game last night, and was
brilliant.
Just thanks for coming in, I think, is the
I think we
short story.
I don't know if
the image of Kai, I think,
but it's
he looked so sad.
Yeah, even if we don't have it on screen, there it is. That's fantastic. I mean, for those who can't see it, like, it's just the face of death, like, because, you know, German's campaign's gone, it's dead, and Kai Havertz comes on, does quite well, scores a nice, well-taken goal to equalise immediately against Costa Rica, and then has that face like thunder afterwards. Imagine being named player of the match after you just got knocked out of the World Cup twice in a row. Speaking of Costa Rica, dearly departed Adrian Shane.
Still alive,
in an OTB sense. Check out this video.
Scenes.
He's in Costa Rica.
This is him, Costa Rica. He's in a bar in Costa Rica. This is
bucket hats.
He picked his location very well.
He's in El Mercadito in San Jose, Costa Rica, and this is Costa Rica 2, Germany 1. Look at those Costa Rican fans.
I thought it was 3 minutes. Kathleen pointed out before we came on air, 75 seconds where they were qualifying for the.
But I was saying, probably the best moment in Costa Rican World Cup history, and Owen was there to document it, as always.
To document it, I mean, he took a 30-second video from a pub.
Well, no, they beat Japan, didn't they? Beat Japan in the group.
They beat Japan in the group. No, but they beat Japan in the group. But no, just to go ahead against Germany, against the mighty Germany. just your face.
Well, it's not as if like he did a searing documentary on it.
Yeah, but like, Jesus, you could, like, I mean, I'm sure if you were around in Scorsese's early days, like, he documented that. He's filming Mean Streets. Like, did he really just film a lot of lads talking?
Comparing with Owen. The other thing we'll mention before we get into your list of something that I'm not really quite sure what it is, so you have to self-intro that yourself, is the Lukaku misses, obviously, that everybody's talking about.
Jesus.
It felt like, looking back on some of them, he should have heeded the Gooch's advice of, do you remember that? Pass the ball into the net.
Yeah.
Don't try and... It feels like every time Lukaku goes at it, he's trying to burst the net, burst the ball, pass it, like caress it into the net.
He does try to smack it, doesn't
Listen
he?
to the Gooch, Lukaku.
He's it was the worst performance by a striker in World Cup history. I'm just going to go out there and say it was.
I'm sure there's probably...
There's more...
He's had a lot of chances, you see. Is the thing.
No, I mean, for me, the worst would be a totally ineffective display where you're not getting involved. I mean, at least he was in the right positions, as former strikers would say about him.
Yeah.
But he was just so... he just lacked so much match fitness. It was a very, like, Dream Team-esque bad performance. The TV series where, like, a striker's having such a nightmare that it's almost unrealistic, and that's what was happening with chance after chance after chance. A lot of them, like, the only one that was bad was probably the final one.
They were all bad.
But no, Torgan Hazard miscontrolled it, and then he hit an unbelievable cross in to recover.
Maybe that one.
I don't know what the goalkeeper was doing, not coming out and catching it.
The last one,
defender,
when it just came at him and he just chested it.
That's the one I'm talking about. Yeah. So Torgan Hazard has a loose first touch, and I think everyone was like, the chance is gone, because he's going to come back and probably pass it back to his fullback or go back into midfield. But he amazingly recovered and swung a lovely cross in. But the keeper should have come out and got it and hesitated. And then it was awkward for Lukaku because it was midriff, so could you go head or volley? It all happened. At the time, it was like, oh my God, that's an unbelievable miss. And it's going to be a meme, unfortunately, for Lukaku for the next couple of years. Anytime he has a bad game at club level, or if he becomes prominent again in the Premier League, either in the Champions League or comes back to the club, that clip's going to be shown in association with a poor Lukaku display. But I wouldn't blame that much.
It's the shocked look on his face after every chance where he's the head in the hands, and everyone's like, Romelu, none of us are surprised.
You have to do that. You have to do that.
You do, but like,
that's part of your contract.
Nobody is surprised. Nobody's that surprised that he's missed, because he's even there. He's smashing the dugout after the match, and Henri's consoling him on the pitch. Like, there's a great stat on XG. I know Kevin Kilbane is one man who loves XG. He accumulated, Lukaku, more expected goals in the second half against Croatia, 1.98, than Morocco did in the entire group stage, 1.35. Morocco topped their group. Lukaku was woeful. Like, he's like, I don't know how Chelsea spent 100 million quid on this player. I mean, even his time, United fans probably don't have much time for Lukaku. His attitude wasn't great either. He looks bigger now. He always was a strong player anyway. But his finishing is just, it's panic.
Yeah,
he just smacks the ball.
I think he put on a lot of mass when he signed for Manchester United, and he said he regretted that, and because it affected his speed. But like, look, there's a couple of points there. Like, first of all, Emma Carroll's saying here in her live doc he's only played 31 minutes of football since the summer. I think that's worthy of inclusion. Like, I know
he
people
shouldn't be
say
on the pitch.
No, because his goal record is such, like, he's Belgium's all-time top scorer, and if he has any chance at all, and you can say he had several chances yesterday, he didn't finish them, but at the same time, I would definitely have put Lukaku on the pitch for that reason alone, because of his goal-scoring prowess. And then you sacrifice the fact, okay, he hasn't played an awful lot of football, so that's what's going to happen. Like, with Lukaku, I think the reason he got so much grief even at United, which is what we all remember, is because it was, first of all, it's a terrible time for United. It's a poor time to be there. And secondly, Lukaku had a knack, a bit like Wayne Rooney. When he was having a bad game, he was horrendous because the ball would bounce off him. And there's nothing that football fans despise more or ridicule more than a professional player at the top level of the game having a poor first touch. Because that's the first thing that's ridiculed at playground level. If you're growing up, if you have a bad first touch, people point that out. Whereas he could subtly be in the wrong place or not getting into the right positions, and a lot of people would miss that. But in fairness to Lukaku, he's always like pretty much in a good goal scoring position, hence all of his goals scored. I wouldn't be as harsh on Lukaku. I wouldn't.
Really?
I just want to leave enough time to make sure as we get to your slot, whatever it is. I don't even know what it is.
It's definitely
YouTube
worthy.
comments coming in here. Shane, we do like you regardless. I don't know what that is regardless of from Spectre.
Regardless of the breathing, because he's given
Okay,
before,
yeah. It's a great top, but for the crest, let's be honest, says Owen McCarthy.
Who said that?
Says
Column's burner account.
Owen McCarthy there.
It's a Cork. Oh, no.
Shocking top on Cullum. It hurts my eyes, says McGill.
I'll just turn off the video.
Mark
then.
McGill Owen.
I have the jersey version of that, actually, Colin. It's the class of 92. It's
the 1989-90 jersey.
James Linsky summarises basically what we've been discussing about for the last 20 minutes. So thanks a million, James. Fair play to you. FIFA should show a picture. That is why they gave it, which I think is kind of what we're all saying here. I can say conclusively that with all angles that your man in the blue top doesn't know what he's saying. He's a Man U fan, says Bohemian 29.
Maybe my top is...
Get behind that.
Which blue? We're both blue.
Loving Kenny Cunningham in RTE feels like he's on a sugar rush most of the time. Jim Sullivan, you'll get no hatred towards Kenny here, that's for sure. The ball was out of play, but FIFA needed to punish Germany for their minister wearing the rainbow armband. Germany weren't good enough. What else have we got here? Career's over after that for Lukaku, says Damien. I mean, I don't think it's
that's ridiculous.
Pure United era Lukaku, says Andy.
Well, it was United era.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. That's fairer.
Duff for a breath of fresh air, says Bruce. Not anyone enough for BBC, but Sky might take a punt. I don't think it's even taking a punt on him, because he's proven now that he's...
but he can do both, Adrian. You're saying, you love him to do punditry, but clearly he can do both. In the off-season, he can be a pundit. But that's
he seems to do not as much of the punditry when he's knee deep in the management.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
Do you know, give it all up, Shane, and concentrate on what really matters. My view on it, and plenty more.
Can I just
comments
before we get to Column's little slot? Can I just point out this?
Whatever it is.
So patronising.
I know that was very patronising.
Coming in, he's a great sport.
He's a good boy.
This so apparently the English media. No, don't get carried away here, guys. But the English media are getting carried away. Believe it or not, I don't know if this has ever happened during a major tournament. Spirit of '66, and they have. On the pull-out of the Sun, photoshopped in Declan Rice's face for Bobby Moore. It's like Harry Maguire is probably Nobby Stiles. We have Luke Shaw, we have Raheem Sterling, Harry Kane, and Marcus Rashford. I wasn't sure if the English media were getting carried away with the whole thing just yet, but then I woke up this morning, pulled out this pull-out from the Sun, and I was like, It's
The
happening, lads.
reason you know that picture is definitely fake, Harry Maguire smiling. I haven't seen him smile.
Harry
for
Maguire has
years.
Nobby Styles.
See, we wanted to wait now to get Kev on to talk about this. We got to show Kev that.
Oh yeah, no, I will show you, Kev.
You'll
have thoughts.
What's this slot?
What's the slot? Well, no, I was just thinking of a few World Cup thoughts I had because I've been watching from afar and I haven't been able to talk about it.
Yeah.
So let's have some thoughts.
This is going to be fun.
This is what I was thinking of at the time.
Let's have some
into
fun.
This, right? I just wrote this down so you can react. First own goal of the tournament was scored yesterday. This is my live notes. There's only one red card so far. That's crazy. Why is Gavi number 9?
Yeah.
Can we stop on that one? Can we stop on that one?
As in, he should be number.
He's a midfielder. What the hell is he number 9 for? That's so unattractive.
They're not squad numbers, are they?
No, but keep him. Asensio's number 10, so Gavi should be number 9.
That's a red flag.
Gavi should be 10 and Asensio should be 9. Because he's such a beautiful player. Everything about him is number 10 all over. Why is he number 9?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
No, that's fair.
I have a jersey section. It's a mini section. So these are my jerseys thoughts. I don't like the German shirt numbers. They look very amateur. The font on them, very Sunday League.
Okay.
I also don't like the Netherlands chain style numbers. Don't think they're very attractive looking. However, I do like Canada's shirt numbers and design. I like the little curved 9. A lot.
It's only gone as so far as to actually have something to show us what you're talking about.
I know. I mean, if only if only I wasn't sorting out the whole show. But I mean, if people can just
it's ripping your
if people can just think.
But do you know what he's talking about? I can't tell. I can't remember.
Well, if you were watching the World Cup, you would know about this. You watch the World Cup, you know about this, right?
Watching all of it.
Hopefully the music's making this a lot better.
Well, you can't hear you, so that's so
the
it's a benefit.
So the Canada one is very nice, right? And then I also like the lowercase I in the England jersey. So see Raheem Sterling, lowercase I. I think that's very nice. Gareth Bale's penalty was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Chavez's free kick for Mexico was the best goal of the tournament and will not be beaten. I think is Kev on now?
Was that Abubakar? Was that the?
Oh, that's my number 2. Boubacar's my number 2.
Top goal.
What about Richarlison?
Boubacar's my number 2, right?
Richarlison, no?
No, that's the thing. You see, Richarlison's the Hollywood answer, and also
that's recency bias. He's all forgetting
a free kick can't be.
Hold on. When I was in the background watching all of this, and I heard all the Richarlison stuff, you know, I've been storing all this stuff up, hence the notes, and I think free kicks get overlooked.
No, free kicks can't be top goal.
They absolutely can.
They can't.
Is
can't. It's in the rules. If you look up FIFA rule 16.2,
so we get his thoughts on it.
FIFA rule 16.2 says that a free kick cannot be voted as the top goal of the tournament.
You just made that up.
Sure,
but honestly, free kicks get overlooked. That whip, like Chavez hit it like a corner.
A scooped goal.
Whipped in. The scooped goal.
I like that one for the aesthetics, but Richarlison's goal was the best goal.
Okay, the scoop goal was my number 2. Remember when Ener Valencia's goal in the first few minutes of the first game against Qatar was ruled out and everybody thought it was a conspiracy? And then we looked at it and it was like, oh no, it was offside. That was good.
And then Qatar became the worst team of all time.
Then Qatar became the worst team ever. Argentina and Mexico was my match of the tournament so far for the atmosphere alone. And then one last thought, Inaki Williams, when the Portugal goalkeeper Diego Costa threw the ball out, why did he not go to his left? Inaki Williams tried to go to his right and he slipped. If he just went to his left, it was completely open. He should have see Robbie Keane and Dion Dublin for reference points.
What you're saying is that you spent the last 2 weeks compiling this list.
No, I actually compiled that last night.
Right.
Oh, I missed out.
I've got a conspiracy. Sorry, go on, Colin.
Brazil's jersey is lovely. However, I do not care for South Korea's jersey as I do not like black and red combinations.
Japan never go wrong with their jerseys.
South Korea.
I know, but I'm saying Japan. I appreciate they're 2 different countries. Japan, I mean, and this one is probably not the nicest one they've ever had, but still pretty nice.
Decent.
Oh, the Japan one's lovely, yeah, but I didn't mention Japan in my notes there, but I was talking about South Korea.
I'm trying to make something out of this.
Look, I just some points I had, and also Vardiol, the 20-year-old Croatia defender. Oh my God, he looks like a ringer playing Sunday League. That guy is absolutely incredible. He's only 20, wore a mask for a tournament. If he wasn't defending unbelievably, like that great tackle against Lukaku when he had a tap in, he was running half the pitch and passing it off Beckenbauer style.
Yeah.
What a player. They're my thoughts.
I reckon Danny Olmo's late miss for Spain was a conspiracy. He hits the Germans. Missed on purpose. That goal would have put... Another goal for Spain would have... The table changed 9 times in 2 hours.
Did ya?
It was just one of those mad. And didn't everyone have the 2 qualification spots at some point?
I think I heard Kevin Kilbane sniggering in the back.
He enjoyed your slot column, I think.
He's sniggering here in my ear.
Come on, come on.
There he is there, look.
Forth.
Oh, he has the top on.
He's still wearing the same top.
Yeah.
I'm just wearing whatever I can when I get up in the morning, you know.
Top goal of the tournament so far? It's probably about 2 o'clock in the afternoon over there, is it not?
3 hours ahead.
10 o'clock. 10:30 or something.
Top goal? Abubakar, surely.
4 o'clock. Abubakar was his class goal, yeah. I did enjoy
a scoop,
that.
Kev. You love a scoop.
I love a scoop. I like the charlatans. I with you. The free kick, I think you're underselling that free kick from Chavez. What a free kick that is. The technique in that is unbelievable. Unbelievable technique in that goal. And he's going to be a player as well, even though Mexico are muck. Who else?
Really think.
Which goal would you have? Which would you have, the Chavez goal or the Abubakar goal top of the list?
Well, you know what? Abubakar wouldn't have done it because he thought it was offside. He honestly thought it was offside. So
it's true, but that would not be accounted for.
It was a great goal. No, it won't be. But he would never have done that because he just thought he was offside, so he just scooped the ball. I liked Mbappe's. Was it the first goal that he scored against Denmark? No, was it Denmark?
Australia,
he did a little 1-2. The one where he went down the touch line, and then it was Hernandez did the pullback for him, I think it was. It was a great little play. And then he kind of finished it off at the end. Lovely play down the wing. And Raheem Sterling's was a great team goal as well.
Oh, yeah.
Harry Kane, where he whipped it in for Sterling, that was a great goal too.
There was
I like Richarlison, just for the moment, Brazil scoring that type of goal. So I'd go with Richarlison, actually.
Started the World Cup off. There was the famous Kevin Kilbane free kick, remember? Was it against Wolves, Kev? You were playing for West Brom. You were only a kid. The ball was just flicked back to you.
I scored, yeah. I used to score a few free kicks in the day, Shane, but that's probably one that was in a big derby, so that one
it was Chavez-esque, it just rose.
Is that the one where the commentator said, and Kevin Kilbane said afterwards that he meant it?
No, that was the overhead kick. You haven't got a clue. Do you actually pay attention to anything? Oh, that was the overhead kick against Southampton.
So Richarlison for you is number 2, yeah, and Chavez number 1.
Well, no, don't stop putting words in his mouth. No, he's saying Richarlison 1.
Richarlison 1, yeah. But Chavez free kick, do not undersell that. That is technically an incredible. That was like. You remember Ronaldo, something a bit different when Ronaldo scored the goal against Portsmouth, David James, for Man United, and it was like, wow, this is incredible, because the free kick that Chavez hit, if you look at his technique as he hits the ball, he hits up and down, and his foot like whips around the ball as he's hitting it, so he gets all the pace, and to get the trajectory, the way that it goes into the top corner, that was unbelievable technique. What a goal.
The Abubakar one for me is just, it's a World Cup moment. It only happens at a World Cup. You don't see that stuff happening.
I know, but honestly, it's still in my mind. He would never have
I know
done
that,
it.
but listen,
that's the thing.
He only do it at a World Cup. Karel Poporski, Euro 96. Got him in moved to Manchester United.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Big moment.
Abubakar also adds to it because he had a great celebration, because he pretty much just stayed in spot.
When he eventually was...
Which actually kind of reflected the goal as well. Yeah. No, but when it was allowed, he celebrated well. I like that.
Thanks for coming in, Colm.
Are you kicking me out?
Are you finished? Is that was your slot done?
Well, if I finish, then Kev will be able to see you two. So yeah, I can leave.
Good man.
All right.
Well done.
I enjoyed it, Colm. Well done.
Thanks, Kev.
Good stuff, Colm, yeah.
Will we tell our audience what's coming up? We go back to Kev? Is that the way to do it? That's what we'll do. Right, it's nearly 8 o'clock. You're watching OTBAM. We're delighted to have you along with us this morning. We've so much to come between now and 10 this morning. We're brought to you by Gillette in association with Movember, effortless shave, magnificent mo, and you can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. Kevin Kilbane, as you might have guessed, is standing by and will be with us. I mean, again, in just a second. Jasmine Baba, writer on all things German football. Obviously, such an interesting morning there. Today, following events last night, let's get Jasmine's thoughts on that last night. Michael Verney is going to look ahead to the double bill at Croke Park on Sunday. The two Leinster finals, hurling and football, one after another. So we'll get his thoughts on that. He'll be joining us in studio. Aine Kinsella has just been appointed as the Wexford football assistant manager, and we'll be getting Aine's thoughts. She's got a trail of success behind her. So what will she be bringing to the Wexford footballers? We'll find out for you at around about 9 o'clock this morning. Alan Quinlan is going to look ahead to an Interpro derby this weekend between Leinster and Ulster, but also some interesting news on the back page of the Irish Daily Mail this morning. O'Shea in the mix. It says RFU may turn to the ex-Ireland star as Jones feels the heat. So we'll get Quinny's thoughts on that. And if you have any other questions or comments for Alan Quinlan about 9:15 this morning, do get them into us. And Damien Delaney in conversation with Nathan last night as well after that. Now, surprise, surprise, Kevin Kilbane is with us. Kev, you were very down at Belgium's chances of progression earlier in the week. I mean, you were very much off the fence. 6.5 years later, Roberto Martinez has, I don't know what he's done, but the quote was, "I didn't resign, this is the end of my contract." And it just felt to me, and I have to say your words were definitely ringing in my ears when I heard him say that, but even at such a low ebb, it's not an amazing look to still be trying to manage your own reputation.
No, it's where they've gone in that time. They haven't really gone anywhere, have they? I heard you guys, I think you were talking about it yesterday, and I think I heard Shane saying, yeah, the number one in the world, and take nothing away. It's a great achievement to become that side, but it is about doing it in the major tournaments, and they should have done that. Certainly the Euros last time out, World Cups and things like that. It's about getting that momentum for the big tournaments, and I don't think he's a sort of manager that's going to be able to manage a team through which would usually be 4 weeks or 3 weeks before a tournament, and then 4 weeks. So you're away for 6-7 weeks of time away during a tournament. I can imagine that the team didn't necessarily come together during that spell. I mean, I know he's only had a week to prepare for this one. I think that probably would have helped him, but the cracks had already started to show with Belgium a long time before the tournament started.
The Germany stuff. What did you make of the whole goal situation last night? We've been debating it here this morning.
We were trying to get everything trying to get our heads around it, because there was so much happening in the game, and at one stage Costa Rica and Japan were both through.
What game were you on?
I missed the buzz from the night before. We did the Canada game yesterday, so by the time we got back, we just missed the start of the match, but we got most of it. We got nearly all of it. Probably missed the first 10 minutes of the game. And the night before, I missed the buzz. I was at the Argentina-Poland game, so I missed the buzz of watching it on TV and what was happening and things like that. Whereas last night, we got a bit of a feel for it, so we had beIN on, so it was a little bit of Keys and Gray watching what was happening on both sides, you know.
You just leave that hanging there, you?
Oh, he was, yeah, and So you asked me a question what I made of it. I know it was. You're half wanting, as much as you want the big teams to be. You know, you want a big quarter-final, a big semi-final. The romance in us all wanted Japan and Costa Rica to do it, because honestly, I've seen so much of Costa Rica, how they beat Japan and how they nearly beat Germany. Defensively, they're awful. Like, they are genuinely awful at the back. Keylor Navas covers up a multitude of errors for them. Going forward, they're not great. They've got a bang average team. Honest to God, bang average. They wouldn't be getting in our Irish team, half of those players. That is the truth. They would not get in our Irish team. But I wouldn't say half. I'd say nearly all the players wouldn't get in the team. So for them to do what they did and beat Japan after getting beat 7 was about right, I thought, when they lost to Spain. I thought, yeah, this is Costa Rica. And for them to have a good go at it, I think it shows that it's not all about, you know, it's about just having a will to win sometimes, and showing a bit of steel and showing a little bit of passion, and, you know, the cliched words that everyone uses. But we've seen it with so many teams in this tournament. Tunisia getting a win, and Saudi Arabia getting the wins, and things like this. Australia. I mean, how many Australia players would get in the Irish side? And they're in the last 16. It's just, when you've seen these sides doing what they're doing, and it's not by great football at times, but it's showing a little bit of togetherness, a bit of fight, and it shows what you can do sometimes with a little bit of steel and togetherness. We
were talking this morning, Kev, about how that result last night now means, because Spain finished second, that Spain avoid Brazil, Argentina side of the draw until the final, which is great if that I guess finishes in a Brazil-Spain final. But does last night's change how we feel about Spain? Are they still the team that we're kind of building them up to be?
I couldn't really judge that Costa Rica performance. I said that when we were talking the other day to a few of the guys over here. I said, Costa Rica are bad. Honestly, they're bad. So for them to beat them 7, it didn't really change my mindset. Spain will do the same whether they play against Brazil or whether they play against Costa Rica. They'll keep the ball in front of teams. Even watching them last night, Japan were kind of quite comfortable. They were just going, all right, you have the ball. No problems at all. You're never really going to run in behind us. We're not going to give you the space to run in behind us. And if that's the case, as we saw at the Euros, I found 18 months ago, they don't really have runners in wide areas running in behind constantly. That's going to hurt you. That's going to open teams up. I probably preferred Asensio playing as the 9. They look better when he plays there. Morata again doesn't necessarily seem to me, with Morata on your side, that he's going to constantly cause problems for defenders, and he's going to get his goal and take his chance. Although he scored a decent goal against Germany, so I don't know. I never would have Spain maybe in my top 4 or 5. They may make a quarter final, and I think that'll be good for them. But I think when they play against a side that's really going to go and attack them and want to win a game, I think Spain will fall short again.
Like when you look at Pedri and Gavi, for example, like I was reading an article yesterday that was comparing them to the other two greats, obviously, that went before them, with Iniesta and Xavi. And I mean, they're not at that level yet, but it feels like a tournament, a coming of age almost for them in a way that, like, I know you're saying obviously maybe outside the top 4 or 5, but players like that who'd have been obviously not unknowns, but if it's a coming of age tournament for them and they build their way in, and suddenly before we know it, like, they're in a semi-final and we're all sort of hindsight merchants going, well, these players are amazing, and why wouldn't they be there?
The thing is, they could do that, and that's the ability they've got. But I'm not being funny. Neither Gavi nor Pedri are on the level of Iniesta. From what Iniesta, and I know that Xavi was a great player that made the game tick over, and he was great at dictating the tempo of a game and everything like that. And I could see Gavi or Pedri having that type of ability, but Iniesta was on a different planet. Iniesta was just, well, he was. He could do everything. He could pass, dribble, he could tackle actually as well, Iniesta. So, no, I don't see that combination. I don't see those two being at that level. I don't ever see them reaching that level. And again, who's to say what's going to happen in 4 or 5 years' time? They're still only young footballers that will improve, but Iniesta was special, very, very special. I think we maybe underplay it, or we don't necessarily see how good Iniesta was for the time and for the time that he's playing. But no, Iniesta, just off the scale how good Iniesta was. I
was watching that documentary in the BBC recently. I think it was called How to Win a World Cup, something like that, and he featured heavily in it, and the way with which his peers speak about him is evident that he was off the charts good. Really special player. Canada are going home, but you're staying put. Is that the plan?
That's the plan, yes. Yeah, they're gone. Obviously they were gone after the Croatia match. That was it, done and dusted for them. So I just look forward now. We have the game this evening. I can't even remember who's playing this evening now, top of my head. It's been a crazy 10 days or so. It's just going from one to the next. So I'm in for the late games tonight. So looking forward to the games. It's Brazil tonight, isn't it?
Yeah, Cameroon, Brazil, and Serbia, Switzerland.
Yeah, I mean that'll be a cracker. Switzerland, Serbia there'll be a little bit of a meet in that one after maybe the last time they faced each other with the Xhaka and Shaqiri situation with the Serbian side. So that should be a good game. I fancy Serbia from the start, but they've got internal problems, I think, within their squad at the moment, which is probably causing them a few issues. And I think looking forward to seeing Brazil again. I think who can't look forward to seeing Brazil and what they're going to bring. But the one thing I've liked about Brazil, though, seeing them, as I said, I was at the game the other night, and the tempo at the start of the game, it's quite a bit of a slow build up, and up to 45 minutes there's almost a build of something special, something waiting to happen, and then you'll get to 60 minutes and the last 30 minutes is almost like a frantic game to watch. They make a couple of substitutions. Every single player that comes onto the pitch is, I wouldn't necessarily say better than the one before, but they're almost as good, certainly as good as the player that they're coming on for. And they've almost got something to prove by not being in the side. So the last 30 minutes of every Brazil game up to now has just been amazing to watch. And I think it'll probably be the same tonight against Cameroon. It's
mad because you're looking at the permutations of that group. Switzerland can't really afford to be negative, but they know a point will be enough against Serbia if Cameroon fail to beat Brazil, which is likely. So they know a point should do, but Serbia have to go out there and win, which just makes the game more interesting, I guess.
Yeah, and if they open up Serbia as they did against Cameroon, I mean, they should never have drawn that game. From a comfortable 3-1 position, it looked like they were going to go and win 4 and 5, and they just opened themselves up. It was terrible defending. How the pace that Cameroon had, and they were just showing them the right side of the field constantly. It was just little through balls that were going in. I think Serbia themselves in the match, though, Shane, I think they showed me enough that they can actually cause a lot of problems and open teams up, and I think they'll go for it. But Switzerland are that type of side, probably the most underrated team over the last 20 years. Switzerland, they're not great to watch, but if you want a team to get the job done, and if you want a team that you're comfortable in saying they could beat any side, Switzerland can actually absolutely just do any side in this tournament because of how they play. So. I don't know. As much as I fancied Serbia before the tournament, seeing Switzerland the way that they play again, I think they probably get the job done tonight. I think it's probably going to be a draw. Maybe Switzerland later on after Serbia leave themselves a little bit exposed.
We'll get your last 16 predictions maybe in a minute, but just on Canada, I saw the coach saying afterwards that they bent but they didn't break. Is he kind of telling a bit of a half-truth?
I just think that the way that they lined themselves up in the two games, there's a lot of talk about the F Croatia quote when he spoke about Croatia after the Belgium game, and it gave motivation to Croatia. We're from a part of the world where we jump on anything, and we make probably a bigger deal than it actually was. And I think a lot of Canada didn't expect Croatia to react the way that they react. We know Croatia; they jump on anything like that. You're disrespecting our country, you're disrespecting our culture, our people, and they jumped all over it. And they used it. They used it to beat Canada, but more so tactically in that game. Anyone who's seen Croatia know the strength, the midfield three, best in the tournament, and they just didn't play a three-man midfield. It was like watching Ireland against Spain in 2012, where Keith Andrews and our boys were trying to chase Iniesta, and I can't remember the three-man midfield they had that day in Spain, but Iniesta was definitely one of them, and we just couldn't get near them on that occasion. It was almost identical to that. Seeing the rotation, Perisic was getting in the game out wide, and they then went forward to the game yesterday and just played the same way against Morocco. Morocco's midfield three is probably one of the strengths as well. Morocco, a good side, by the way, and I fancy Morocco to beat Spain, as it turns out. Morocco-Spain, isn't it? I think Morocco might beat them.
Right.
But Jeez.
But that's a bit of a bombshell to just drop into the chat.
I know. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Morocco's midfield three is a strength, and he went with a two again. He's gone with a two against the strength in midfield. And in the wider areas then, Ziyech and Hakimi are brilliant down the right for them. They've got a real good understanding how they play together. There's a bit of madness about them, but there's also a really good understanding of how to defend certain situations. And I couldn't believe how he lined them up. They lost the game in 20 minutes, and they lost the Croatia game from 20 minutes into the match to maybe 60 minutes. The game was done before they decided to put an extra man in midfield, and it was exactly the same yesterday. They lost the game in 25 minutes, and second half they had a goal, but Morocco got themselves back into shape and were fairly comfortable, really.
Xavi, Busquets and Xabi Alonso, as well as Iniesta.
Decent, yeah.
Torres and Silva.
Yeah, they narrowed up in that game, Adrian, and it was such a hard watching the lads that night, because they were just keeping the ball in the middle of the park, and I think they had it might have been a tournament record at the time for the most passes. I think it was over 1,000 passes in the game that they had, and we were. I just felt for them all because of the overload in the central position. We just couldn't get near them.
Kev, Japan, Croatia's jumping out to me as a potential blockbuster round of 16 game. Like you've got, I mean, their manager Moriyasu has masterminded wins over, Luis Enrique and Hansi Flick teams, having been 1-0 down at half time in both. Like, are we sleeping on Japan a bit? How far can they go in this tournament? Croatia's not an easy last 16 tie.
No, I don't think they'll beat Croatia. I think Croatia are too good. I didn't see enough of the game yesterday against Belgium, really. I know Belgium had chances actually to win it. Lukaku missed a couple of sitters, didn't he, in the game? But I really fancy Croatia. I think that midfield three in that game, a little bit more rest, perhaps going into the Japan game. Japan just did the energy that they bring, and that's where I think they could hurt the back line. Like Lovren's still in that side. Gvardiol is just, well, I don't know. He could be anything he wants to be really in the future. So defensively is where I'd look at Croatia, but I really think they're going to start to control that game. And I think as the game wears on, Kovacic against Croatia, his stats back up stats that Lothar Matthäus was producing in Italia 90 in terms of tackling. I think he had 93% pass completion, and he was just incredible, Kovacic. And everyone was talking about Modric in that game, but it was actually Kovacic and Perisic. They've got a lot of different facets to how they can beat aside Croatia. I think they're going to have too much for Japan.
Before you do that, one quick one here, because there's a good comment in here from somebody on YouTube. Bry says the question is what Ireland player will get into any of their teams. Nada. Which I think is a bit harsh, because we'd have a couple of goalkeepers that could definitely walk into most teams at least.
I know. I'm talking about Australia. I think probably our starting 11 would get into Australia's starting 11. Definitely
right, you just totally swapped them out. Wow.
Well, their goalkeeper's actually okay. Matt Ryan's a decent goalkeeper. Our back four's better. Collins, Duffy, whoever you want to put in our back four. Fullbacks, Doherty would play ahead of them. Seamus Coleman if you're going to play James McLean, or back forward play ahead of Australia's midfield. Cullen would get ahead. I don't mind Irving. I think he's a decent player, actually. But I still think we'd have better players than them. And up front, whoever, Ogbene, Parrott, Knight. Yeah, Knight. I mean, yeah, honestly, look at the team and look at the team. I honestly think you'd be hard pushed to pick an 11 that would be better. The Australian 11 to say it'd be better than ours. I don't see that.
Just briefly, Kev, we were talking about this headline in the Sun this morning. They've got their pull-out Spirit of 66, and they've photoshopped Declan Rice's face in for Bobby Moore. They've photoshopped Harry Maguire in there as well.
What a shot.
They're really getting carried away. I mean, John Giles said last night if he was to put a few bob on anyone at the moment to win the tournament, it would be England. So
yeah, is
it coming home?
Giles is forever neutral like that, isn't he? They're good, aren't they? You have to say it, and I think, however, whichever way he found to put Foden in the side, I just think it's more for an opposition as well. Then the opposition know how good Foden is. So all of a sudden Foden's on the team sheet and it's like, we're going to have to make special allowances for this guy.
Are you sticking with
that? And when... Yeah, he's got to play, Adrian. He's the best player. Why? How can you not play him? How can you not play Foden? And if he doesn't, he's going for energy again. And I think they might fall down on a little bit of guile, because the only thing I'd say is with Senegal are such a powerful, strong side, and the running ability could hurt England, certainly in wider areas. Kyle Walker being in the side certainly going to help England, I think, from that aspect. But I think when it comes
Rashford
to it,
too, or no?
I could see because he's got 2 goals, he's probably going to start him. If you look at the first game against Iran, he kept the same side. And there was hardly any team that played the same 11. I was surprised he just went with the same 11. I thought he just would have made 2 changes. Maybe take Mount out. And even though I thought Mount played well against Iran, maybe put Foden in, and Sterling, even though he got the goal, I think he could have dropped Sterling and took him out, and maybe even put Trent Alexander-Arnold in at right back against the USA in that second game. It's something that I've spoken to you guys about in the last few days anyway. But he decided to go with the same 11, and it didn't work. I think he has to make 1 or 2 changes, and where are those changes going to be? Probably, I would say, which I don't think he's going to do, but I think I'd probably take Henderson out. I'd probably put Mount as an 8, just for the maybe a little bit more energy that he might bring to the side. I think Mount can absolutely play as an 8, and I'd play Bellingham an 8, because you've always got the stability of playing Declan Rice as a sitter anyway. And I'd probably keep. I think it'd be harsh to drop one of that front 3, but maybe Rashford might come out. But because he got the 2, I think Southgate will definitely start him. So if I'm thinking about it in my head and how he would do it, I think he's probably going to go with the same 11, even though I do think he should make changes.
All right, well, we'll see. Certainly doesn't seem to be too many people giving Senegal a shake of it. We'll see how it pans out, and catch up with you down the track.
There's always hope. There's always hope.
Always hope. Fingers crossed.
I understand the point. Good man. Good luck.
Take it easy.
Kevin Kilbane on the line, live from the World Cup. It is 18 minutes past 8. You're watching OTB AM, and we're delighted to be in your eyeballs and your ear holes this morning. And if you have any comments for us about the football or the rugby coming up a little bit later on, do feel free to get in contact with us. You're watching OTB AM, brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent mow, and you can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. We're going to be chatting to you in just a few moments' time, but you can check out the lunchtime wrap today. A reminder about that. All the very latest sports news, it's all with thanks to Deliveroo. You can check out the app for some great match day meal deals across the World Cup. Deliveroo, food, we get it. After the break, we're going to delve into what went wrong with Germany, knocked out at the group stages of the World Cup for the 2nd time in a row. We're going to be chatting with the German football analyst Jasmine Baba.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Off the Ball Daily.
A home for your favourite podcasts from Off the Ball. The performance rankings, You Had to Be There, the crappy quiz, and a slight tangent.
And the next time he opens his mouth, I'm the first one on saying, "Lads, Keane said this."
Subscribe to the Off the Ball Daily podcast feed right now.
Are you a sports fanatic who loves to travel? Then sportspass.ie is for you. Log on for the chance to win the trip of a lifetime in 2023 to a top global sporting event. 8 winners get to choose from 12 incredible prizes, including trips to the Women's World Cup in Australia, the Super Bowl, the Masters and WrestleMania. All prices include return flights, accommodation and tickets for 2 people from anywhere in the world. That's sportspass.ie. You win, you choose.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
8:20, OTB AM, and delighted to say we're joined on the line now to talk about Germany's exit from the World Cup last night by the German football writer Jasmine Baba. Welcome back, Jasmine.
Thank you for having me again.
Thanks a million for jumping on. It's an absolute catastrophe, was the words of Thomas Muller after the game last night, and there was various versions of that from former and current players in the aftermath. The second World Cup in a row that they don't get out of the group. How's it all gone down with the German public?
Not very well, as you'd expect. There was a lot more expectation coming into this tournament and a lot of disappointment. Now it's all over for the second time in a row. And it's a little bit unfathomable because especially fans around Germany have expected quite a boom in performances. We've had a German team win the Europa League. We have talents like Jamal Musiala, and to not come out of a group stage once again is very bitter. It's a very bitter aftertaste over here.
It's a whisker, isn't it? Like the paint on the ball, and we still, as of like 12 hours after the game, haven't fully seen an absolutely conclusive angle that the ball was over the line, obviously, in the Japan-Spain game. It's crazy fine margin. Are people or, the squad leaning on that as just for that thing, we would have still been there, so things aren't really bad? We were hard done by here. Are they leaning on that?
No, I don't think so. A lot of the blame concerning players and coaches, ex-players, pundits, have been more to the fact that they should have done better against Japan, and failing that game against Japan, they needed a win against Spain. And that's what it's really boiling down to with the players at the moment. They knew that if it was a result to go in the other game, they had ultimately failed, because they can only take their own performances into the future and look back at that. So the reaction around the goal hasn't been as great as in other countries and other medias, but there has been some analysis over that goal, but everyone seems to be in agreement that it was a goal and it was up to what Germany did and less about what Spain or Japan did. They know they needed that win, or at least a draw against Japan. They failed that. They did not get a win against Spain. And last night's result ultimately was not enough for them to go through.
It's kind of Mannschaft, Jasmine, was the comment that I was seeing coming up mostly from the Vox Pops of German fans. Is that it? We're not a team? Is that the general takeaway?
Yes. I think in terms of, again, talent, there are players there and they do play well as a team. I don't think we've seen the worst performances, especially compared to the last World Cup and even in the Euros. They looked more like a team. They played really well. It was in some cases, them not finishing off their chances against Spain. It was maybe playing a bit too safe for the draw and not going for more. And even last night, there's just questions around Hansi Flick's tactics, his game plan going into this. There's several things you can pick up on, including that Hansi Flick has had a year and doesn't know his starting 11. He used 4 different right backs in 3 games. He has changed the defensive line, a different centre-back pairing, different front 3 just behind the striker as well. It doesn't seem apparent that Hansi Flick knows exactly what his best squad is. And a year having this team, you should at least have an idea and have a starting lineup strong enough. There's questions about who he took on top of his actual tactics and game plan on top of this. So it's less about the team where a lot of players get the blame, but more was Hansi Flick's decisions actually correct this time round?
Yeah, like we asked you, I think, Jasmine, the last day you were on, if Hansi Flick is a good coach. And I know he's won a lot of trophies and he's done well at club level, but I mean, he just doesn't know his starting 11, as you say, which in a World Cup is a fairly damning indictment.
Yeah, it is. And I was being a bit more diplomatic last time. As I said, if you've won a lot at club level, then you surely can't be a bad coach. But some of the decision making I saw last night, as well as against Japan, if you don't take note of these kind of mistakes, and you can see on the pitch these mistakes happening. For instance, if you take Gundogan off against Japan, and you start committing and you start conceding more chances from counterattacks, and then you do the exact same thing last night, which completely derailed the stability of the team and actually gave Costa Rica a chance back into the game. I can see that as an analyst. Why is him and his team not seeing that? Why did you only take one right back who doesn't even play a lot in his own team against other right backs who do? There were all of these questions, and I can't say for certain that he's a good coach following this, because there were just so many mistakes from so many levels. As I said, tactically, as I said, building the squad, taking the squad with him. A lot needs to be answered from both the DFB and Hansi Flick.
Should Hansi Flick resign, and will he?
If you look at history, Hansi Flick normally is successful and then steps down when he feels like the time is right. This is the only time I've seen him be unsuccessful and not actually step away. Straight away. We saw Roberto Martinez after the Belgium match basically resigning on the spot. We haven't seen such a thing with Hansi Flick yet. It's more, I'm going to talk to the DFB and come to a conclusion together. These talks can mean anything. These talks can mean that he stays in the position. It might mean they choose to go a different way. From a German point of view, and from what I've seen, I would hope that was his last game as German manager, but we'll have to see.
Didi Hamann on Irish TV last night said it was a shambolic representation of German football. You have Klinsmann saying a disaster times 10, and obviously a lot of and when you were on the last time, you were chatting a lot about like the production line of players and maybe the lack of players in certain key positions. Both of Hamann and Klinsmann's former teammate Oliver Bierhoff is in a pretty powerful position with the German Federation Director of Football. Does he shoulder some of the blame for this?
I would say he has to. The development of players is one thing. I think people around the DFB, including Oliver Bierhoff, have not taken into consideration how the last World Cup had gone and the development of players since that time. So we've talked about the last time I was on the number 9 role and how we've had a development problem that we're not creating enough box present number 9s like Niklas Füllkrug. They're more winger strikers like Timo Werner, Karim Adeyemi. So that since then nothing has been done to really address that issue. But now we're getting a bigger issue with Germany's not really producing any fullbacks, because in 2014 Jogi Löw won the World Cup with 4 centre-backs, and I feel like everyone thinks their fullbacks has to be a kind of centre-back fullback. And those kind of problems and that kind of administration also the blame lays at his door too, in part. Although, as I said, these problems do add up, but this competition had enough good players, had enough talented players. In his interview, where he basically gave an emotional monologue saying that he doesn't know yet if he will still be around for the next World Cup. Likely is that he's not at 33. He could be still around for the Euros in 2 years' time, where he'll be 35. But he gave a very emotional monologue saying that it's been good, it's been bad, the times he's had with the fans, but ultimately, above all, it's been fun. And it just sounds like he's going to hang up his boots from the national team. But it's not only Thomas Müller at 33. Joshua Kimmich was also asked if he was going to hang up his international boots. He's only 27. He'll be 31 in the next World Cup. But those kind of questions are being asked of the latter 20 players as well. And before we even get to the latter 20s, we do have quite a few 30-year-olds in this squad. Manuel Neuer, 36, Rudiger's 29. Gundogan's 32, yep, exactly. Jonas Hoffmann is 30 as well. So Mario Götze, who's just come back after a good bit of form, also 30 years old. So this is not the the competition we wanted Germany to be like in the start of a transition period, and we're suddenly seeing that they could be once again with all these players who could be like, okay, I won't be around for the next World Cup. They could still be in the Euros. I think a lot of them will give that their last hurrah. But yes, there's a massive kind of just change at player level as well. I don't think a lot of them will stick around if Hansi Flick might still be coach for then.
Flick does go. Are there any obvious names that have been discussed, Jasmine, as potential replacements?
Not of the moment. I think national team head coaches seem to be a little bit random. If you look at all levels, there's never anyone obvious. There's obviously quite a few free head coaches. But yeah, no names have been listed as of yet. I think it was easier before because Hansi Flick was obviously the assistant manager of Jogi Löw at that time, but we don't have anyone with a strong coaching background to be like, yeah, that person will fit. Obviously, there's people like Thomas Tuchel still on freeze, but I doubt any of those will go into international country football just yet.
Is Klinsmann beyond the realms of possibility as a return? Is that a ludicrous idea?
Yes, definitely beyond the realms of possibility.
Okay.
If it wasn't for English-speaking media, I think I would forget that he is German and exists in this country.
Klopp obviously is another one that often gets mentioned, and it's probably going to happen for him at some point down the track, but his Liverpool ties seem to be a little bit strong maybe for now.
Yes, but obviously Liverpool are going through some sort of changes at board level and ownership level, which could influence his decision about the future. We know that it's not been the easiest season for Jurgen Klopp, even though they are still performing at some point. We don't know what really is happening there, but if there are too many changes, we could see him, like they were at Dortmund, we could see him step away, and that would be, in my opinion, a perfect fit.
I guess the one advantage, Jasmine, for the next manager, whether it is Hansi Flick or someone to replace him, is that Germany qualify automatically as hosts for the next major tournament. So, I mean, at least there is that focus and something to build on.
Yes, and I think that's exactly what this team needs. Jogi Löw made it a precedent to almost have player blocks from Bayern and Dortmund during his time, or the best two teams, let's just go with that, which were Bayern and Dortmund at that time. And the majority of the players came from these two teams. Right now, though, Dortmund isn't the second best team, or not regularly or far ahead second best team, and I feel like that needs to be taken into account. I think there were a few odd selections that could have been best used within other teams such as Freiburg and Köln and etc. And I think the new manager needs to be a little bit better at picking the best players from these teams and not relying on the bigger player blocks that we've seen in the last 10, 15 years from Germany.
Jasmine, thanks a million.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Jasmine Baba, writer on all things German football, joining us to discuss the fallout from Germany's exit last night, and I'm sure it'll run as to whether, I'm sure there'll be some sort of statement in the not too distant as to whether your man is coming or going.
Yeah, I think if anything, if last night decided anything in our heads, Adrian, it's that the format for this 48-team World Cup needs to be looked at very carefully by FIFA. Like a 3-team group just doesn't have the jeopardy of last night.
No.
They're talking about pre-match penalty shootouts and all this garbage. And no doubt FIFA will choose the least desirable option, as they tend to do. But I think getting rid of that jeopardy we have in the final round of group games is a real danger for the next World Cup.
What pre-match penalty shootout?
I don't know how it's going to work.
I mean,
there's like
On the face of it, I'm not against it. I know. Listen, I mean, I don't want one for siding with the suits there, but like, Jesus, I'm off. I mean, I don't know quite how that would work.
I don't know how it works, but there's just a lack. There's going to be a lack of jeopardy in the 48-team World Cup. If
I agree with that. There has to be 4 teams.
Yeah,
and I think there were some indications I saw in some of the papers today that there was a possibility that they may relent on that, and they should.
You'd hope so.
Yeah.
Well, fingers crossed.
There's all sorts of mad comments coming in about who should take what job. Raj for the Germany job was one of them here from Bruce Robbo fan club. He's been linked with every other gig, so I mean, like, why not be in the mix for that? But it does look like he's regardless of the links with the Germany gig, he might be staying in France. Righto, it is 8:35. It's Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM, and we are delighted to have you with us this morning. We've loads of comments coming in. Not all of them make sense like that one, but if you've got any comments about the football you've been watching, or about the rugby to come over the weekend, or anything else beside, indeed, about the Club GA this weekend, do get them into us, please. Braeburn Coffee is the official partner of OTB. The festive season, of course, is officially here, so why not enjoy a shot of gingerbread goodness in your Braeburn Coffee today? It's available at an Apple Green location near you, stores nationwide, and you can pick up your coffee there. Up next, Michael Verney, GA writer in studio. We're going to preview the double bill of Leinster final games at Croke Park on Sunday. Before all of that, Aisling O'Reilly was in the streets of London this week to talk with some England fans, much to Shane's delight, of course. Take a look.
It's coming home for Christmas. Come on, England.
It's coming home for Christmas. Come on, England.
I'm live from London. I've an hour to kill before my flight, and I thought, what better way to spend my time than speaking to the English fans?
It's coming home for Christmas.
Yeah, they looked good last night. Big contrast to the game against America. So yeah, no, happy with it.
Do you support England?
Yes.
Rob, do you support England?
I do, yes.
England play all right, but Wales, it was nowhere. One chance, never made a chance for 90 minutes, 95 minutes, no chances, no goals.
Yesterday I had lots of Three Lions playing after the Wales game. So, yeah.
Very good. If Ireland were in the World Cup, that you be cheering for Ireland?
Absolutely, yeah.
I guess the proof's in the pudding. He's taken us to a final and a semi-final. But to be honest, I think if he doesn't win it, I think we've got to look elsewhere, because we've got so much talent on this team.
So is it coming home for Christmas?
Of course.
England, got every chance.
Okay, the biggest question. Is it coming home for Christmas?
Yes, it is. Come on, England. We're gonna do it.
Do you think they can win it?
I think so. If they keep going the way they're going, they can do the job.
So you don't think it's coming home for Christmas?
No, absolutely not.
I'm from Offaly, Tullamore, County Offaly.
Brilliant. And how long are you living here in London?
Since 1979.
Wow. So the big question, Patrick, who do you support in the World Cup?
I think Argentina will win.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Very good. And do you support England that you're living here so long?
No.
No, like definitely no.
No. I only came here to take Her Majesty's money.
That appealed, something about that appeals to Shane Hannon's.
Take the Queen's money.
Speaks to you.
It's the King's money now, of course.
20 to 9 almost, OTB AM. Michael Verney, good morning to you.
That's how we eat.
You're eating up this World Cup stuff.
I'm not.
You haven't seen a minute of it?
No, I haven't watched a minute of it, no, to be honest with you.
There's no interest?
Just doesn't interest me. I don't know, I was just chatting Shane off here. I'd much rather keep in tune with the snooker and different bits and pieces. I'm a creature of habit now at this age. I used to love soccer, but I just kind of went away from it. I don't know, when it kind of went really commercial or whatever, and it went on Sky, probably a lot of it, I just probably stopped watching a lot of it, yeah.
Will you watch, like, when it gets to the final, will even curiosity sort of draw you in? Or
I'll probably be somewhere where it'll be on, or be around a few boys or something like that, but I haven't watched a minute of it. I have a fair idea of what's going on, and stayed in tune with the drama last night. You only have to go on Twitter to see whether the ball was across the line or whether it wasn't, and the angles are fascinating as well, yeah.
Should I I'm considering whether I should book off next Monday to go down and celebrate Kilmacud Crokes doubleheader win or not.
I tell you, it'd be a fair double if they do it. The footballers, obviously.
Unlikely.
Well, the odds would suggest that. They were brilliant last Sunday against St Mullins in the hurling, but like they're coming up against the cream of the crop in Ballyhale, and a Ballyhale team that has a point to prove, and a Ballyhale team that got a nice little wake-up call last Sunday, because for the first half, and even Pat Hoban, the manager, said after they were bullied in the middle part of the pitch, and isn't it great to have a stick to beat such a good team, such a good team with a team that really has a point to prove. And Ballyhale only need to win one game and hope that Ballygunner do their thing down in Munster, and then it's that fascinating rematch in All-Ireland Club semi-final that I talked earlier on this year about like what sort of club games would get the same coverage as a county game, and that would, if they meet again like na Piarsaigh and Ballygunner, it'll be an inter-county standard club game, and Ballyhale or Madford, and you can say Ballygunner or Madford too.
Yeah, it does seem as if everything points that way.
Adrian's disgusted myself and Tommy during the week, Mick, because he's a Westmeath man, so you think you support your, even if it's not your local club, you support your county's club who are competing in a provincial championship. But he's blown into Kilmacud here, and it's the local team now, and he's down there every week. And
I'm literally a member of Kilmacud Club.
You're one of the 10,000 members? I've probably blown up the members.
Yeah. 4,000.
Super club. Adrian loves the term super club.
It's a mighty club.
Well, they always say, like, in fairness, it's great having numbers, but the logistics involved in controlling those numbers and organising those numbers is unbelievable. Super clubs need super people as well, like normal clubs, like normal clubs do.
Must be so tough
I'm
for
going
them.
to use that line again, because that is absolutely it. I'm the biggest advocate for everything they're doing down there. I have to say, the stuff that gets reported about, the stuff that gets melded into a conversation around like Shane Walsh joining the club, and suddenly you've chat about they're the Man City of GA and all this stuff. I see what's happening on the ground down there, and I don't know what's happening at the other level. I'm not involved in it, but I see what's happening at the under sevens, and there's 150 kids at that age group going down there, and like you say, the super people that are involved in driving that stuff. It's an incredible volume of work.
I agree with you, but like the Man City of under 7, under 8 teams, people doing great work as well, but like they are the Man City of
no, but Man City have oodles of cash, and what I'm saying is like
Kilmacud are broke, are they?
No, but at 7 at 9 o'clock, 9:30 on a Saturday morning, when there's 130, 40 kids milling around, and it does them a massive disservice to be talking about this nonsense to do with, it's like as if they've got they're beg, borrowing and stealing as many pitches as they can because they don't have room to. It's not like they've got like some floodlit like super facility, but like it's no different to any other club, just that it's a big population range, so there's a huge number of playing staff there, and the volunteer effort is off the charts.
The facilities is a fascinating one, because Coola would often train in Bray, and Kilmacud could be coming off the pitch when Coola are coming on the pitch, and facilities are obviously very hard to come by, and the more numbers you have, the more traffic on a pitch, the more, like, if you have, we'll just say you have 150 kids at under 6 or under 7, like, they have to go, like 150 is a lot. They have to, like, one pitch is not going to, a corner of pitch isn't going to suffice for them. So there's a lot involved in the logistics of it. And just what we said about the double, we're probably doing the chance of the double a disservice. The footballers are obviously roaring hot favourites against the Downs, who haven't been in a provincial final in 50 years, and Kilmacud are doing back to back. But the hurlers were brilliant last week, and after being beaten by Clockballacalla last year, probably stunned down in Portlaoise, they beat them pretty comprehensively. They beat a St Mullins side, they put it up to Ballyhale in a final in 2019, beat them pretty comprehensively, and their pace is scary. They're a young, fit, athletic side. I think the fascinating thing about it is what's probably not talked about with the Shamrocks enough, with Ballyhale Shamrocks enough, is how fit, how strong and mobile they are. And that, I think, in around that middle third, I think Ballyhale might eventually eat them up physically, just because Kilmacud are, as I said, a mobile side, but there's only a certain amount of times in a game you can get hit before it eventually takes that little steam out of you, and you're kind of punch struck a small bit maybe towards the end of a game. But I do expect that to be tight, and it's definitely not going to be one-way traffic.
Adrian Mullen was somebody myself and Shane had on Tuesday, and we were chatting to him like a young fella who, former Young Player of the Year, All-Star, and like has Fenley blood in him, which I didn't know before we had him on. Like obviously a serious player, a better chance of winning All-Ireland at club level, I would hasten to predict, than he does at county level probably.
Well, he has a couple already. I think it's mad. They were only beaten 3 points in an All-Ireland final. Was it 3 or 2 even? Was it 130 to 226 in an All-Ireland final, and we're totally right off next year.
But if I asked you, you'd still say Limerick.
I know I would, yeah. On Adrian Mullen, there's a guy that can literally do everything on the pitch. He can play inside, he can go deep, he can create, he can attack, he can distribute brilliantly. He's so physical, and he's such a great worker, and it's like almost the mantle in Ballyhale Shamrocks has been passed probably from Henry to TJ, and it's probably slowly passing to Adrian Mullen now as well. Like he's only 23, did his cruciate his young hurler of the year, as he says, an all-star this year, was in the running for player of the year probably before the final, had a quiet final. By his standards, hit 3 points, but he's controlling everything that's good about Ballyhale at the moment. And like that's some statement to make, you know, in a forward line that also includes Owen Cody, Colin Fennelly, TJ Reid. Do you know what I mean? And as long as Mullen is at that 8 out of 10 and a few other guys chip in at 7 out of 10, they're in pretty good shape most days.
The dual players that we talk about, one difficulty I suppose Kilmacud have is the dual nature of a lot of their, the fact that you have two teams firing on both fronts. Can be a difficult thing for clubs to manage. I know there's not that much of a crossover maybe in terms of squads, but it's still something they have to consider. Yeah, Brian Sheehy's the only one I think this year with Kilmacud. I think there was 2 last year, so you have the really unique aspect of Sunday where the games were actually flipped. The hurling was supposed to be second. He's a guaranteed starter for the hurlers and will play the whole game if he's fully fit to play it. So he'll play the first game. Hopefully be celebrating from his point of view. We'll go and maybe chill out or jump on a bike maybe for 15 or 20 minutes, probably not do the warm up with the footballers, and then we'll probably come on for the last 10 or 15 minutes as he does normally with the footballers. But it's a difficult balancing act for him. It's not something that's ever been done before where a club has been able to win both codes in the same year. I think Portlaoise were beaten in the late 80s. UCD I think have been in both finals. Ballyboden have been in both finals, and Portlaoise, but no one has ever won the two of them. So imagine the Sunday Brian Sheehy would have. And I have to say it's just uniquely GEA, and fair play for them for facilitating that, because it could have easily just said. Yeah, well you could say as well, fair play in one way, but should they be on different days? But we asked Oisin O'Rourke during the week, who's obviously with the hurlers, and he was kind of happy because the overlap is not that strong, and for a club it's someday for Kilmacud to be going to Croke Park for 2 provincial finals on Sunday, and it'd be extra special for Brian Sheehy if they win the 2 of them. That goal that they got against St Mullins with that Ronan Hayes drive down the middle, and it's easier probably for him in a lot of ways just to tap that over the bar, but he goes for the jugular. They're going to need to go for the jugular a lot if they're going to come out on the right side, aren't they? Yeah, and I think probably the intriguing and promising point of view thing from a Kilmacud point of view is the amount of goal chances they created and the amount of goal chances that Ballyhale threw up against Naas. They could have been well behind 15 or 20 minutes in, and they probably had to thank Dean Mason for two really good saves, and they could have been very far behind. But they were a bit startled in that opening period against Naas, and I don't expect that to be the case on Sunday. You know, when a team gets a wake up call and the next day it's like they're the one giving the wake up call to the other team and they're the one forcing the physicality. But from a Ronan Hayes point of view and a Kilmacud point of view, love breaking the line, love creating goal chances. Like, he was stone mad for goals the last day. He had no interest in tapping the ball over the bar. Every time he got the ball, he was racing down the middle. I don't expect there to be big channels of space for him to run down, but when they get those couple of chances, they're definitely going to have to take them. They also have Alex Considine back, who was suspended from the county final, so he missed 2 games. He's going to be back, and I imagine he comes straight into the full forward line as well. This might sound like a ridiculous thing to say, but I mean, are there any weaknesses in the Ballyhale team that Kilmacud can target? Oh, there aren't too many weaknesses, and if you look at nearly every player has got county experience as well. The defence definitely looked a bit shaky last day, so I definitely would say that that's something that Kilmacud will go after, and Kilmacud put up big scores and they create goal chances, so probably creating chances and taking them early. That's where you're looking at. There was definitely a few openings left by the Ballyhale defence the last day, and Kilmacud will definitely be looking to exploit them. Yeah, but Ballyhale to get it done is what you're saying ultimately. I actually think Ballyhale will be the ones that force the issue early, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see Colin Fennelly hit the net once or twice in the first 10 or 15 minutes, and for them just to have them at arm's length throughout. Like, by arm's length I'm talking 5 or 6. Okay. In the second game then, Crokes against the Downs from Westmeath, and another man we had on recently, Luke Loughlin, chatting about his amazing journey over the last few years, but he wasn't always a starter for Westmeath this year, but big impact player at times during that obviously Talton run, and clearly belongs at that level. Man of the match in the Ratoath game, and kicked 5 points, and if the Downs are to win, he's a player that probably needs to be man of the match again. Oh, without a doubt, Jay. He's kicking 4 or 5 from play every day, and his story is fascinating because, you know, he's talked kind of openly about, you know, playing games or losing a game and, you know, just kind of disappearing off the face of the earth for 2 months. But I was just chatting to Niall Mitchell, his forward colleague and teammate, during the week, and he just said you can see in him how happy he is at the moment, and you can see even in his style of play that he's not, you know, most really good forwards, I suppose, have a selfish streak to them in a way, but he's taken on the shots when the shot's there to be taken on. He's a creator when it's there to be created. And
and he's going to have to be. It's a really fascinating one on Sunday. So the Downs have kicked an average of 20 points per game, and Kilmacud concede like so little. I think it was 112 to 4 points against Port Harrington. It's funny enough for a team that has like Shane Walsh in the ranks and obviously Paul Mannion when he's fit, they don't shoot the lights out, they don't need to, and they really go after your kick out, and they go after the Downs kick out as well on Sunday as well. The Downs were in same as Tour de Strand actually. Tour de Strand were in a provincial final 40 years ago, were beaten there in the Connacht final at the weekend. The Downs were in the final in 1972 and obviously haven't been back there since. And the funny one about a lot of the provincial finals this weekend, there is like a red hot favourite in one corner. Apart from the Schlockneil and Dunloy game, there's a really strong favourite. The Downs are massive underdogs, and they've hit 20 points per game. Like, they'd be doing well to get 10 or 11 on the board. Like, that would be a good tally, and that would give them a chance of winning the game. But
and as you say, like, maybe Crokes don't score an awful lot more, and maybe that's the
sort of game that they'll need. But like, Craig Diaz is in crazy form out around the middle of the field. Like, he's literally controlling games, and I know Paul Mannion is missing, but they still have the likes of Darragh Mullen up there, Shane Cunningham, Shane Horn, and obviously Shane Walsh as well. Probably expect Dara Egerton, who's more renowned as a hurler, same as Niall Mitchell is actually, probably to pick up Shane Walsh, and obviously he's going to have to keep him quiet. But again, if you're just focusing on man marking duties with him, it opens doors and space for other guys, and there's plenty more guys to take opportunity. Yeah, he's controlling games midfield. If anything, he got called back under Desi a couple of years ago and he played a couple of games. Like, we chatted to him not too long ago as well, and he's in the form of his life at the moment. I don't know if his home situation will allow him to go in. I think he has a small kid at home, but he's literally a guy that you would be probably looking at for county.
I've been at a couple of games of Crokes recently. I mean, I know it's Dublin, so they're a different benchmark than most of the teams in the country, but the way he dominates games and like is not afraid to get up and try for a score or take a score. He's scored a couple of goals. Remarkable that he hasn't played more for Dublin over the last 8 or 9 years.
It probably is, yeah, because as you say, I do think he's in the best form of his life at the moment, yeah. And it's never too late. It's never too late. If you're in form, it's never too late. So it'll be interesting to see. It would be his third time back in with Dublin if he was called back in. But the fascinating thing about Crokes is, and I know they were beaten in the club final last year, but that last minute goal, but their ability to strangle you and suffocate you. Kula had them on the rocks in a quarter final, just choked them out in the last 10 or 15 minutes. Like a good lad put a sleeper hold in or something, Shane, the last 5 or 10 minutes.
Well, there's comments coming in, Nick, on your top, people suggesting it's the Rock.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Fair enough.
The good old Brahma Bull symbol, yeah.
With the sleeper theme, of course. I don't want this to sound disrespectful to the other teams in the Leinster Club Football Championship, but do Kilmacud have it tougher within county? Like, when they play the Dublin Senior Championship, is that a much tougher test for them than when they get to the provincial level? Yeah,
well, you could probably say the same even when Vincent's were on a run, and even when Ballymun got all the way to the All-Ireland final as well, and even like when Burr were on top back in the 90s, like Burr won a Club All-Ireland in 95 having won a playoff against Rhinus to qualify for a quarter final. That can often be the case, and same with Kilcoo. Warren Point, and I think it was Warren Point and Byrne, absolutely ran them to within an inch of their life. Now they're in a provincial final and are probably favourites to win All-Ireland outside of Kilmacud. So that's often the case, and once you get it's almost like once you get that over that first little hump, not the pressure is off, but you can kind of get into a bit of a rhythm, and Kilmacud are definitely in a rhythm now. Like, they were as good as they've been over the past couple of years against Port Harrington at semi-final. Just a word as well on Maurice Deegan. He's refereeing at the weekend. I think that's it's going to be his last big gig, because he's hit the 50 mark, and once he hit the 50 mark, you basically have to retire from inter-county refereeing. Well, I tell you what, because I was chatting John Keenan recently, did a piece with him in the Independent last week. He's 49, and to me, he's coming into his prime as a referee, and he was refereed that brilliant Munster final last year. But next year is going to be his last year because he's 50. So I don't understand. I don't know. Is it ageist? I think it is.
50 is young now.
Well, like, I'll tell you what, he said, the way John put it to me was, if I'm still hitting my metrics at 53 or 54, I don't think it really matters. Like, because
exactly,
like, what's
fitness test? Down to a fitness test.
What's the average age for retirement at intercounty? We'll just say it's 31. That's not to say that someone can't be still playing when they're 40 like Tony Brown was. There are outliers in every category. I just find it funny that with the shortage of referees, that we're actually pushing some of the top referees out the door.
What was 50 20 years ago now
Totally,
feels like
yeah.
it might be 55 now. Like
Totally,
they do
yeah.
probably-
With everybody's a kind of lads that are involved at inter-county, be it refereeing or playing, they're kind of gym bunnies now as well. They look after themselves a lot better. They eat a lot better. Do you know what I mean? So I would agree with you, and I think that should be taken on a case-by-case basis. When if somebody wants to leave at 50, fine. But if they're coming into their prime, like I think a John Keenan is, like I'd be holding on to him as long as he possibly could.
When you're speaking of age there, I think what you mentioned, Niall Mitchell, I think it was him that was speaking during the week about the average age of the Crokes team being 26, 27, fairly prime age, and the Downs that little bit older. Now, a bit of experience there as well, but that's fairly significant that the Kilmacud team, they're not only dangerous, but in their prime.
Yeah, and seasoned, Shane, I think as well, yeah. And it's just, I think that bit of experience when it comes to closing out games, there's no better team to close out a game than Kilmacud Crokes at the moment. And the Downs will have to be ahead and trying to hold on, I'd say, and I just can't see them getting the scores that are needed. Like Luke Loughlin is flying, Niall Mitchell is flying. Like the chances they're going to get are going to be under so much pressure on Sunday in comparison to what they've probably met to this point. And like of all the certainties at the weekend, they definitely would have the Kilmacud Crokes footballers as the greatest certainty of them all at the weekend. And that's not doing disrespect to the Downs. It's just the the facts of the matter.
It's funny how we mentioned like all the talk is of Shane Walsh and the scoring and the fact that he can be outside the scoring zone and pick off points galore, but it was one of the players pointing out this week that he gives everyone else in the Kilmacud Crokes forward line space to do damage themselves, which you kind of forget about sometimes.
Yeah, well, when you have a player like that, people often say, oh, if we can keep him out of the game or whatever, but then he gets smart and he starts like just disappearing out of the forward line, and all of a sudden there's only 5
I don't know how you keep him out of a game. I honestly watched him play at times.
I know that too,
at the Dublin final, you talk about keeping out of a game, he's back in the Crokes full back line a lot of the time, helping out, digging out, like getting stuck into the hard work. I honestly, that sounds like such a naive comment. I don't know how you keep him out of a game.
It's very difficult. You have to have a miserable fella who has no interest in touching the ball. You actually do. Like you have to have somebody that does not probably want to be involved in the play, and it will just be like, I don't care. Like I was chatting to Chrissy McCaig during the week, and he said some of the best games he's ever had, he hasn't actually touched the ball. But you have to be like so tunnel visioned on that. But as I said, Walsh, it's amazing how whatever about Walsh's genius and being able to kick scores, it's amazing how he's actually like talking on the field and like dictating affairs like a lad that's been playing with him for 10 years. He's literally like bringing all his experience. I don't know if he came straight in and was like, I'd say he got to learn the plays very quickly and then was like, I'm an experienced player here, I'm going to control things. If you're down at pitch level, Adrian, you can actually hear him. You can actually hear him dictating and telling lads where to go. And listen, that's a great sign, and maybe that's why he was carried shoulder high when he came into the Stillorgan clubhouse that night.
I was in that clubhouse the next morning, dropping a kid off to crash, and the aftermath was real. We've Dennis Ryan in contact on YouTube saying Verney, not just a poet, but the greatest hairstyle in sports journalism.
How do I
have to look at it there? Yeah, it's probably a trim needed now before Christmas. To be fair,
I'll leave it. Yeah, get the sheep shearers out.
Also, bum. Somebody saying that you're a ringer for Serge from Kasabian, who I think we've a shot of.
Actually, yeah.
Is that good or bad?
That's good. That's good. Handsome man.
Paul Galvin is the one I often get.
Yeah,
I actually dressed up as him for Halloween one year. A long time ago, before I got into this gig.
We need to see. Mick, thanks a million. Enjoy the games over the weekend.
Cheers, gents. Surely will.
Michael Verney in with us to discuss mainly the Leinster games, obviously, for the weekend, and we've more GA to come. Do keep the comments coming into us, by the way, if it is about your who everybody looks like or whatever it is. Lash them into us. It is just coming up on 9 o'clock. We're going to talk rugby with Alan Quinlan in just a little bit, but before all of that, I'm delighted to say we're going to stick with the GA and appointment that's happened in Wexford football over the last few days, and delighted to say that Aine Kinsella, the new Wexford football assistant manager, is with us on the line. Morning, Anya.
Morning, Adrian. How are you?
Flying it. Thanks, William, for jumping on. You've joined John Hegarty's backroom staff with the Wexford senior footballers. You were with the hurlers last year.
Yeah, with the Wexford hurlers last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So probably one of the toughest decisions I've had to make in a sporting sense, I guess, to walk away from the hurling setup. You're leaving something you love to go into maybe a little bit of an unknown, but I've had the pleasure of working with John for the last 3 years with Shell Milliers in Wexford. So when he came to me, offering me a coaching role with, more scope maybe than what I've been doing previously, it was just too good an opportunity for me to pass up.
And football's your background. Is it your love?
Yeah. So I would have grown up from Fenna and Carlow originally, so I would have grown up playing ladies football my whole life. Would have represented Carlow the whole way up along. We had a really good club in Fenna, St. Fortunes, and we had a nice bit of success there. winning Leinster. We were Leinster Intermediate Club as well as several county titles. So ladies football is my background, but I took up camogie very late in life, and then somehow found myself in a hurling analysis gig when Colin Bonner came in and took over the Carlow Hurlers. So it kind of just all snowballed and took off from there. But the coaching thing is an area I've been wanting to try and branch into in recent times. So it's definitely an area that I would be probably relatively new to in such a hands-on capacity. But it's very exciting now.
You mentioned the scope there that John had said you're going to get a bit of a broader brief maybe than you had previously. So you're doing stats and video analysis with the hurlers. So what's the brief now?
So just coaching, and having an input in all aspects of team preparation. I would be very interested in all areas of performance. So being allowed now to have, on the field time with the players, have an input into team selection, setup, team play, tactics, and then I think how that marries with the analysis side of things, I think it's a really good complement to each other. So it's a great role for me to be in, for me to learn and develop now in this capacity.
Do you pick up little bits on you as you go along? Like, would you be someone who kind of invests themselves and really digs deep into the world of coaching? Like you've worked with the likes of Davy Fitz, for example, so you're picking up little tidbits as you go along?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I've been incredibly fortunate with the managers that I've gotten to work with across every spectrum of the game, from a schools level to a club level to an inter-county level. And everyone that you would work with, you'd always be taking up little bits and nuggets from them. And like the time I got to spend with Colin Bonner in Carlow, that was my first experience in management at any level. And the amount I would take from those years I spent with Colin, and I guess when I was a player, I was very rigid in my thinking of how you had to go about your business and how you had to prepare, and always felt that you nearly had to be the most serious person in the room. But Colin showed me that there's other ways of dealing with people. So every manager that I've worked with, as I've moved across the pathway the last number of years, I've taken little bits and pieces and kind of brought the things that interest me the most along with me as I continue on the journey now.
Have you a style of football that you'd like to see Wexford playing on you, or what's your, because obviously these things tend to be on vogue at a certain point, and depending on where you're at in the overall sort of hierarchy of football in the country, but what sort of style would you like to see Wexford footballers playing?
Like I'd love to see the lads be more attacking and be more adventurous and take more risks. I think the way the game is moving at the minute, you have to be brave enough to take risks. And I think very often they can be rewarded. And again, you have to marry that with a practical sense of being in Division 4 as well. So you have to look at having a strong defensive shape and being able to work out from there as well. But for me at the minute, in the short term, it's just about getting to know the players. I wouldn't know many of them, obviously, having spent the last couple of years involved with the hurlers. One or two of them off the Shells panel I would know well. But aside from that, right now, the short-term view for me is just to get in, get to know them, try establish some connection with all of them, get to know them as people. And I suppose that'd be something that would be very crucial to me, is creating common touch points with the players as people, and then using that insight into how they function as people to try and enhance the learning that occurs then on the coaching pitch.
We had the infamous incident of Jerome Johnston, the Kilcoo coach, not wanting to take charge of his club Ballybay when they were playing his home club, which a lot of people kind of were falling down two sides on. But you'll have the unenviable task of taking on Carlow in Division 4 this year on you.
Yeah.
Is that a tough thing to do, taking on your own county?
It'll definitely be strange. I guess the fact that when I was working in Carlow, it was with the hurlers, and they would be a group that would hold a very special place in my heart based off, the success we had and what a brilliant group they were at that time. It'll definitely be strange to go up against your own county, but I wouldn't have that same familiarity or knowledge with the Carlow footballers at the same level. So whilst it'll be strange, I don't feel I'll have the same conflict as Jerome had a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. It's Laois up first for Wexford in the preliminary round of Leinster, and then of course the winner plays Dublin in the Leinster quarter-final, which is a big task. Is it tough? Excuse me. Is it tough for other teams in Leinster to get, I guess, psyched up for the province, given the fact that Dublin are so dominant?
In a sense, yes, but I guess how you frame that at the outset of the year, what you set up as your success criteria for the group you're with, will determine that. And also, there's a minimum of 10 competitive games for Wexford between now and the kickoff of the Leinster Championship. So how those 10 games pan out between a Byrne Cup and Division 4 of the league will have a huge say upon how we arrive to the starting point of the Leinster Championship. So I guess, and it's the same for every team in Division 4, everyone wants to get out of there. But any player who has spent time down there, or any coach or manager who has worked with teams in Division 4, knows how competitive it is, what a dogfight of a division it is. So the medium term will be looking at trying to have a really strong Division 4 campaign and try to get out of there. But that'll be the target for every team in that division as well.
And I presume you look at something like the Tailteann Cup, Anya, that can be transformative for, we don't know yet, obviously, because we've only just had the first ever winners of it, what sort of an impact that'll have on the likes of a Cavan or Westmeath, all those extra games under their belt. But I presume putting together a big run in the Tailteann Cup will be a big goal for you this year.
Yeah, it'll be really important. And I think you just look at what Westmeath did last year, their approach to it, what it meant to them as a group, what it meant to the county as a collective. And I was fortunate enough a couple of weeks ago at the performance analysis conference in Carlow IT to listen to Jack Cooney and Thomas Mount talk about their experience working with the Westmeath footballers and the approach they took. And you couldn't but be inspired by their story and their approach to things. So I think it's a fantastic competition. I hope it continues on in the vein that it has for its inaugural year, because I think it is something that would be very worthwhile for Division 3 and Division 4 counties. You've left this long trail of success behind you as well, Castlebridge, Shelmaliers. What's the secret sauce? Oh, I think I've just been very fortunate with where the groups I've gotten involved with, and at the time I've gotten to work with them from the get-go in the Carlow Hurlers right along. I think all those groups have the age profile has been really good. They've been at a point in time where they've been taking themselves seriously and have been quite ambitious. And like they've done more for me probably than I have done for them. And I think particularly of the work with Shelmaliers and the doors it's opened for me in a Wexford GA sense, it's been massive. And the run we had last year in the Leinster Football Championship, the day above in Louth against Nave Martin, it'll be one of those memories that will stick with me forever as one of the best days I've ever had in sport, which is a crazy thing to say, given that I'm not from down there, or I've only been involved with the club for a relatively short space of time, but I've been very fortunate with who I've gotten to work with. What's the long-term goal? Would you, maybe not even that long-term, you see yourself as a manager at inter-county level at some point down the track? Yeah, you know, that would be probably a long-term thing. You know, develop as a coach, I suppose, is the immediate thing. Maybe look at getting involved in a couple of years' time at a club management level. I think as well, and it's been lovely. The reaction I've had since the Peats last week has been great, and people have been so positive and so supportive. But I've just been thinking about that this trickle is only going to get more and more. Like, we're seeing a slow creep of more women coaches into the men's game, and I think the reason why it's going to develop more and more and become a way more normal occurrence is because people forget that female sport is still in its infancy in this country in relative terms to its male counterparts. So much time, energy and investment has been given to increasing female participation numbers in sport and keeping females playing sport for longer. But I think now the current generation that are playing, and maybe girls in their teens, the same logical progression from playing to coaching and managing is going to develop there now, as already exists in the men's game. We're just a little bit younger and we haven't developed or matured as a sport yet. So I think of, like, you look at that Meath ladies team, I think loads of them will end up going into coaching simply because it's going to become more and more common to do. It's going to become the logical progression. So I think that's what's going to happen over the next decade. Is going to be the next great evolution of female sport in this country. And if they have the visibility of, like, obviously Anne Downey took on the Ballyragget men's team a couple of years ago, and the visibility of people like yourself doing that, then it becomes less of a, geez, I'm not sure I could do that. It's like, well, here's an obvious path now. Yeah, and it's funny because for me, this doesn't feel like that big a step because I've never actually worked with a women's team. I've only ever been involved in male sport. So for me, it feels like a very natural step. But if I remove myself from the center of this and kind of place myself externally and think about if I was watching this being written about someone else or someone else in this position, I'd be like, that's brilliant. Oh my God, that's fantastic. I even think of my own reaction when I saw Elaine Hart being involved in the Tipperary football backroom team, or Lizzie Kent in Wexford, the Wexford ladies footballers. So to increase that visibility, I think is important. And just to let women know that we only have to push the door now. Sometimes I think because you have to battle for so much for so long in certain regards as women that we almost expect the door to be locked against us, where I think this door is waiting to be pushed and we only need to give it a little nudge and then just step through into the space.
As you say, Anya, it's been a slow creep of female coaches into the men's game. Like I think of the likes of Mags Darcy and Clean O'Connor as examples in my head. Do you find all this talk, and I guess the headlines the last week about this being a big moment and breaking the glass ceiling, do you see that as patronising, or do you see it as do you maybe understand the intrigue?
I definitely do. I do understand it. I 100% understand it. And maybe I would feel its significance a little bit more if I was coming from maybe being involved in a women's team and stepping across into a men's team. But for me, like any team that I've worked with, any player in the room or any manager, all they really care about is, can you do the job that you're there to do? And once you can do that and you're adding value to the group, whether you're man or woman or anything else doesn't really come into the equation. You're just there to try and help them perform better. Like it was great. My first year at Wexford, Mags was there and I got to work with her and learn from her. I was actually chatting to Quinlan during the week about this new initiative that's been launched about developing a female coaching pathway in GA. So that's all very exciting, and that coaching pathway now, making that more visible and developing a mentorship program, I think that aligns with what I was saying a couple of moments ago about the resources and investment now that's going to be made to allow more women progress into in a coaching sense, in a managing sense.
Your family are no stranger to the GEA world either, Anya. I know your sister Marie is high up in the GPA's National Executive Committee as well, so clearly runs in the blood.
Yeah, no, it does, and I guess I was thinking about this since the piece last week, and people were asking, how did you get into this? And both me and my sister were actually very lucky growing up in that we had lots of female coaches and managers along the way. So Geraldine Marr would have been my manager for when I was minor with Carlo. She also would have come back in and done a stint when we were as senior manager. Two club mates of mine, two brilliant women who have had a significant impact on me growing up, I suppose. One, Niamh Dobbs, would have been a selector of my brother's minor football team in Carlo. And then Jenny O'Neill, who unfortunately, really sadly passed away a couple of years ago. She would have coached Maria under 14. So we both have had very strong female role models in our lives growing up that kind of makes this feel just a very normal thing to do.
We're going to follow your path with interest, and I'm sure it's going to be a long one as well. Anya, really pleasure to speak with you this morning. Thanks a million for jumping on.
Thanks very much for having me, boys.
Thanks a lot. Wexford selector Aine Kinsella on the line to discuss her new appointment and the path that she's about to set off on. It is 13 minutes past 9. It's Friday morning. It's myself and Shane with you until 10 o'clock. What's your plans for the weekend, Shane? This was... you're
going to ask me finally. We've been making the point in...
that this hasn't come up.
Production meetings where you haven't
I just needed to put a bridge between you and the ex.
Your ex, Owen. Yeah, well, Owen was always asked what are your plans for the weekend. I took it as a slight that maybe you thought that I was boring and that he's only from Monaghan. They've only got Wi-Fi and they're only...
I'll be honest with you, there's no great secret. I only ever used to ask him because he used to hate having to answer it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas I think
you're like, here's my plans, right, tonight. Here's the itinerary.
Yeah, well, I'll be playing, we've a big match for Monaghan Town FC in the Cavan Monaghan League now tomorrow evening against Monaghan United. Good local rivalry. Win, we go top.
Right.
Cavan Monaghan Premier Division, so that'll be...
Is there a philosophical split between Town and United.
Bit of a divide, yeah.
It's United are traditionally better, obviously.
Well, we beat them 3-0 in the Cup last weekend, better might not be necessarily current.
Wow, smack talk.
So it's smack talk ahead of the game tomorrow night. So the town looking to do damage again tomorrow night.
Are you the big number 9 or what's the...
Big number 9, captain of the team this year.
Right, captain,
right. Paul Smith is the star striker. He's a former League of Ireland player, so he kind of brings the prestige and the kind of,
What do you bring?
I bring the big man in the box, I guess. Could score the odd goal as well. Scored a header a couple of weekends ago. So, it's a team game, though. It's not about me, Adrian. It's the hope is 3 points is all that matters. So that's my plan for the weekend, and maybe have a couple of pints afterwards, potentially if we win.
Good man. Right, well, look at we'll make that.
Thanks for asking.
Make that a regular. I
Thanks
just
for
feel
asking.
like it's not great when you're just so enthusiastic about telling us, Shane. That's the
I know
you're
your
be more reluctant. That'd be great.
That's fair. I know your plans obviously revolve around Kilmacud, no doubt.
Yeah. Santa's coming to Kilmacud in the morning, so we'll all
brilliant.
be down. Yeah, he's bringing selection boxes with him, so
lovely.
I'll be there, front of the queue.
Ideal.
9:15, OTBAM brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember Effortless Shaved Magnificent Moan. You can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. Here's what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio over the course of the morning. Jason Sherlock, the new Westmeath coach, will be coming your way. OTB Gold from 1 o'clock. We have Mount Rushmore Cavan is the subject today. 3, Brendan Bradley, Team 33 League of Ireland legend. 4, Chris Waddle from 6 and OTB Gold. And of course the crappy quiz is going to be live, I believe, from around sort of 12 o'clock direction is what I understand. Maybe a little bit later in the day, a little bit later today. You can follow OTB across all of our social channels. Subscribe as well to the OTB Podcast Network for all the best and latest in sports content. Up next, Alan Quinlan is standing by. He's been doing his prep live in studio. First of all, before all of that, Aisling spoke with Malachi Fekitoa on how he's settling in at Munster.
Malachi, your first season at Munster, how have you been finding it so far?
It's been great, we're building nicely. It started slow for myself and the team as well, but obviously a lot of new coaches and myself new and new system in place, so we're building nicely, so hopefully we can do well in this competition.
Yeah, obviously there's Graham Roundtree is in, there is new coaches in there, they're finding their feet, you're finding your feet, so it does take a little bit of time. I suppose you have to trust the process, especially when you have new systems in place.
Yeah, I believe so, and that's what we've been working on is focus on what we can control, which is hard work, and that's what we're all about there. You can see the things change slowly. We start getting results now, and win a couple 2 or 3 games now in a row, and hopefully we can build.
And did that all kick off with your win against South Africa in Perky Queeve? That was a massive occasion.
It did, honestly it was it's a proper game. I could see how much it meant to the boys and also to the Munster fans, and can feel the buzz around the club, and I believe that's the start of something, and hopefully we can carry that on to the Champions Cup.
Did you realise of how big a game it was before you went into it? Obviously you'd only arrived over, you obviously know all about South Africa, but I suppose to play in Perky Queeve, it's not the done thing in Ireland.
I knew playing in the national side would be big, and but I didn't think the whole experience going to be that big, if you know what I mean. It felt like a test match. It was for the boys, and the fans loved it. It was sold out, and hopefully there's many more games like that in the future. Yeah.
And how was it for you to make the transition to the style of play, I suppose, here in Ireland and Munster, and how they play to what you would have been used to?
Look, it's tough, especially for myself, trying to get connection with the players, and also finding out what works and what not, and and the game doesn't slow down for you, you know what I mean, and all that matters is result, and why you're trying to find your feet. The game doesn't stop, so it is hard, I'm not going to lie, but I'm still working, and I'm still working hard behind the scene, and a lot of guys are helping out to make things easier for me, and I just can't wait to come out on the other side.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The Coigig Pod on OTB Sports.
We should have played the ball around in the middle a little bit more. We were too quick to drop off 3v1. That's been a problem that we actually stopped against Scotland because Niamh Fahey stepped in to stop Caroline Weir.
Keep up to date with all the WSL action every Tuesday and subscribe to the feed in the OTB Sports app now.
Are you a sports fanatic who loves to travel? Then sportspass.ie is for you. Log on for the chance to win the trip of a lifetime in 2023 to a top global sporting event. 8 winners get to choose from 12 incredible prizes, including trips to the Women's World Cup in Australia, the Super Bowl, the Masters and WrestleMania. All prizes include return flights, accommodation and tickets for 2 people from anywhere in the world. That's sportspass.ie. You win, you choose.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
9:20. Welcome back. Alan Quinlan, good morning to you. Morning, lads. How's it going? We had a great plan to be chatting away about Leinster and Munster and all sorts of stuff, and then I picked up the Irish Daily Mail this morning and I saw O'Shea in the mix, or if you may turn to ex-Ireland stars, Jones feels the heat. So he's obviously there in a director of performance role. Is that his something like that? And so that there's a possibility that if Jones goes, I mean, if he goes, they kind of need to decide now, don't they? Like, this needs to be either you leave now.
This stuff is kind of getting out and leaking out, even though the review hasn't been completed. Maybe they've had their meetings this week, and but it's kind of strange that it's out there now that this stuff is. Conor O'Shea's been linked. There's lots of talk about different coaches taking over. Warren Gatland, Scott Robertson,
Borthwick,
yeah. So I have a feeling this mightn't go well for Eddie Jones. I think there's a lot of kind of rumblings and obviously for England to be having the results they've had in the last 12 months, the last couple of Six Nations as well. So
if they were to do that, Quinny, the like O'Shea in one way and Borthwick obviously to the same degree, given what they would know, given that there's a Six Nations only around the corner, surely it's probably an interim appointment that gets them, I don't know, past the Six Nations.
Yeah, because it's a tricky time unless someone like Warren Gatland or Scott Robertson were to say, look, I'm coming in for the next couple of years and I'll sign up. But this has been probably driven by what will dictate this, Adrian, I think, is the players. They'll go and talk to players. And unfortunately for Eddie Jones, there's been lots of rumblings about, maybe the way he treats people and different coaches. There's been a fair rollover of coaches there over the years. The way he's kind of runs this kind of ruthless kind of environment and stuff like that. But not every coach will please every player and vice versa. So there's always going to be some players who'll say, well, I don't like that coach, and some will be incredibly loyal. So if you ask someone like Owen Farrell, because he's been captain and he's been a mainstay, he'd probably say something really positive, where someone like Mike Brown, who played, got dropped, wasn't picked, was frustrated, says something different. So that always happens.
On that the Good, Bad and the Rugby podcast during the week, saying, and he's in all the squads, saying that
he's the kind of fellow who.
Well, it was put to him that, like,
coach, he still probably turns up. And
the rumours out there
thing.
that there's a split in the camp, the players are not happy, and he was like, I mean, maybe what else would you say? But he was certainly fairly definitive in the sense that
it wouldn't surprise me for a character like him, because he's that kind of fellow who doesn't really care, and coach wouldn't affect his psyche. He's kind of that free spirit, and he's a very good player. So it wouldn't surprise me like that. But when you run a kind of a tough, ruthless environment, which, it's top-end sport. It's not mollycoddling either. You have to have a bit of pressure and you have to have standards and all that kind of stuff. But then when results starts creaking a little bit, you hear little things that certain guys, you could get more out of them. On paper and the evidence of what you see from England players, they're underperforming. They're not a team that maybe are as dominant. Given the players they have, and I'm not saying they have this wonderful talent of 30 players that are unbelievable, they're world's best, but you see what Rassie Erasmus and Nienaber have done to South Africa. You sense that England are kind of a bit of a sleeping giant like that. If they have a little bit of change, maybe there is a lot more potential. I don't know. Eddie Jones has, had great success for himself in his coaching career, but he's kind of been up, down for the last number of years. And, England are one of the powerhouses of world rugby. Whether we like it or don't like it as Irish people, that's the way they are. But you sense now that, they're not really sure their identity. They're not really sure which way they play. Can they overpower teams like traditionally they've done? you know, the results just haven't been good enough. So I suspect they will make a change. I don't know. And, you know, as I said this on Monday to Ger, I said Eddie Jones is, you know, he's very outspoken. He's always kind of throwing little jibes at different coaches, different players. And, you know, he's a real character in the game. And, but I think there's something could happen out of this, you know.
Quinny, is it not a bit of an exercise in futility then, asking the players what they think about Eddie Jones? Because you're going to have, as Will said yesterday, you're going to have 15 who love him and 15 who hate him.
Bill Sweeney, the chief executive, and other people who are in the decision making, they'll on the QT will be what's it really like. They'll try and garner that information as to what the environment is like and what do the players really think, and do they need to. They won't hinge it on that. Ultimately, it doesn't matter if you've a dictator running your team if you're getting results. And usually, you know, if you are getting results, it's, you know, it is fairly ruthless, Shane. You know what I mean? But we've a lovely balance and what's happening now, you know, with the type of leader we have in the Irish rugby team and Andy Farrell. They'd love to get him back, I would think. I think he's learned a lot and matured, but Eddie Jones has done, you know, people would argue and say that the results just have not been good enough in the last couple of years, and that's the reality that he faces, and that's the kind of pressure he's under.
And yet you look at their World Cup draw, and like you could quite easily
the easier
be
side of the draw, yeah, of course, yeah, and that's what they've done it before, haven't they? You know, and there's every chance. That's why it could be an attractive proposition for a lot of coaches. And if they if it stays as it is, I still think they will be a serious threat next year. But there's been a lot of changing in the coaches over the years, the assistant coaches and stuff like that, and that stuff doesn't happen if there's a good environment there. You know, it doesn't usually happen.
One person we know isn't, or most likely is not, getting the gig or taking the gig is your buddy. His
advisors have got in ahead of the curve again here, you know, got their statement out and ruled themselves out of the English job. And
well, it's played out ideally for him obviously now, and he's it looks like, I don't know, has he actually signed, or he's going to sign up until 2027 to stay in La Rochelle as the head coach. And he's often spoken about, like, the decision is not just his decision, obviously it's a family call and the setup that they have, but this is ideal for him now. And it's sort of, because, like, I have to say, every other time we have him on, it's like, oh, you've been linked with this gig or that gig, whereas now it's like, no, listen, I've 5-year contract to run here, and that's all done now, it seems.
Yeah, he hasn't signed, and he said it in his article this morning that he would be frustrated if people think he kind of used this situation, and he likes a bit of humour, and you can slag him about things like that.
And to be fair to him on that, it was after he gave that interview to BT after one of the Highland Cup games the other year, was the last year, when, like, it wasn't of his making that all this stuff come up. We were asking him about it. What are you going to do? Like, I mean, you have to kind of respond to
yeah, and look, he's a year and a half into the head coach gig, so there's a year and a half left, so it's not a surprise that they would be discussing his future, you know what I mean? I don't think you'd want to let it run into the last year, and it's going well. They like him. The players like him. They've spoken. Jules Favre was on, you know, at that BT launch. So we heard Malachi Fekitoa at it during the week. And I know if you're asked about your head coach, you're not going to say I don't like him. But you sense Will Skelton. There's a lot of them saying that they have this kind of relationship that's
you can read between really the lines what players say.
Yeah, you know, obviously I know him very well, and I know that that's his approach anyway. He would absolutely lambaste you if you weren't doing your job, but loves to have a bit of crack and get that balance right. And that's always the intrigue with any coach, you know what I mean? I can't say that it's the exact way you should do it, but that's what I feel the way it should be.
It feels like it's a more long-term approach rather than like the Jose Mourinho, the Eddie Jones, like all brim and buster.
Sometimes you need to go in and have this ruthless and cut out the dead wood and you know, really have a pressurised situation where you're ruthless in your decision making and all that kind of stuff. But the coaches who last are the ones that are respected by the players and that they feel that they're getting a fair crack at the whip, and if they don't play, they get proper feedback, all that kind of stuff. There's a balance. Who'd want to be a coach? It's a very high pressurised job. When results are going well, it's great. Rog hasn't experienced that kind of low dip where, you know, you lose 5 games and the crowd are starting to get on your back. And maybe he never will. You don't have to. But, you know, what happened last year, winning that European Cup, gives you credit for a long, long time, because it was just the scenes afterwards, and it united that team. So he's in a good position and happy where he is, I think, and he's come out and said that now.
As someone who knows him well, Quinny, is Rog the type of coach that you think you would have liked to have played under?
Yes, because he was the same as a player. And I've said this many times, he was effectively like a coach when he played, because he spoke a lot at meetings, and he always spoke for the reason of making the team better. You know, if we lost the game, he was very vocal in reviews, would pick you out and would be very honest and open in the way you played and stuff, but always kind of have an ability to tell you, you know, you can do better, and I believe you can do better. So he always had that intrigue, the same way as Paul, you know, natural leaders that I would have been seen on a regular basis. You know, Paul had the same kind of ability to do that, and really trying to get better all the time, and a great standard as players. So Rog was, yeah, of course, he helped me a lot in my career and helped lots of players around him, and you know, turned up and did his job really well, had a high standard and got the best out of himself. So I would have, because you know, he was very, very good and a great driver in the successful team that I would have played in.
Let's talk about the rugby. 2 games to touch on. Obviously, Saturday night URC action at the RDS. It's first against second, and you've been very impressed with Leinster. They obviously got the job done in Belfast earlier in the not that long ago, a couple of months ago. So you expect it to go with form again, or what's your expectations?
Yeah, well, they're going to have a lot of their, you know, frontliners back now, and this is going to be a tougher task for Ulster. Ulster have, you know, probably been the closest to causing them problems in the last couple of years, and they've that ability to, you know, to put them on the rack a little bit at times. But you've got to be impressed with Leinster again. I know usually we're talking about the business end of the season and what happened last year, and that's where they'll be judged again. It's no surprise that they're going to be right at the top of the league, and you know, in the playoffs and in the knockout stages for Europe as well, I think. But you know, points scored in the league, they're first. Points tries scored first. Points conceded 16th. So it tells its own story that, you know, the stats and numbers that really, really matter, they're top of the pile. And even when they make all these changes, they seem to, you know, get the job done and be ahead. You know, you look at the Scarlets game a couple of weeks ago, the Welsh players are missing, the Irish players are missing, and they go over to Wales and they win 30 points to 5. Dominant, new players, new caps. So it keeps kind of rolling that group of players and what they're doing. But of course they're going to get, you know, it's the business end of the season, and that they'll want to deliver and bounce back from the disappointments of both the URC and Europe last year. But they're showing no signs of wilting or weakening. But I think Ulster have improved a lot again, and they've added a little bit to the squad, to the environment. Obviously, Kitsoff is coming in, Rory Sutherland is in there. They have a little bit of more steel about them up front, and obviously very, very talented players. You know, James Hume is a wonderful player. Having Luke Marshall back, Balakoon, Stockdale back in the mix. There's a lot of players now that are starting to mature and fronting up to big challenges. But you think it's going to be a tough one from tomorrow night. But they're capable of causing Leinster problems, and as I said, they've done it in the last couple of years.
And a lot of players with points to prove at the RDS as well.
When you talk Ulster as well, John Cooney could be facing Ireland in the World Cup next year for
during
Scotland.
the week, and again, we've heard the rumours, and you couldn't blame the guy. If he's not going to be in the mix, he may get a crack at the World Cup. His dad is Scottish, so you couldn't hold against. I think he'd be a fool not to do it at this stage. If he's out of the Ireland reckoning, and that's probably
3 years since his last Cup.
Yeah. So he seems to be. So he'd be a fool to do that. But
well, whether he even gets into the Scotland team,
not to do. Well, it'd be worth a crack, you know. But obviously tonight, your favourite team are over in Edinburgh, Munster. You're always slagging us.
Not at all. Well, it's a tough assignment for them.
Team.
Like an emotional week for them. Mike Blair's spoken about the fact that they've chatted a lot about Doddy Weir this week. They're asking fans to turn out in support of that. You mentioned about the internationals back in the RDS. A raft of internationals back on both sides, and a tough assignment. All the makings of a great game, that one.
Yeah, it's a very tough task for him. I think when you see the players that are back, the only kind of chink of light here for Munster, I think, is that sometimes when you bring back all your internationals, it takes a little bit of time to get back up to speed with the calls and the setup. But I think the bad thing for Munster is that kind of emotional situation over the Doddy Weir's passing, and that's a kind of a night for them to try and honour him. And they're asking all the people to turn up and do that and
where they're
see if they and all that kind of stuff. So that adds to it a little bit. But it's a real kind of pivotal game for them, that if they go and get their something there, it'd be an incredible result, really, given that there's a lot of top class internationals playing for Edinburgh tonight. Munster on the back of, I know they've made a couple of changes, rotated the front row, but Gavin Coombs back in, so they have a little bit of playing time together, this group, and that was a problem from early on up to the 7th round, at 57 players used in the league, which is incredible. You only see that kind of stuff at the end of the season. But against Connacht last week, and I know Connacht will be really frustrated by that, because they had opportunities, but Munster just had that little bit of composure at times, still made mistakes and errors. Their maul was good, their set piece. Connacht caused them a lot of problems in the scrum. So they're coming up against Schumann tonight, and Lewin De Bruyne, and others, 2 South African props. They've 2 South African props effectively come off the bench as well, in Venter and WP Nell, even though obviously WP Nell has played for Scotland for a number of years. So that's an area they really got to get right, and a tough task for them tonight.
Who's going to, in a word?
I find it difficult to see Munster getting the win because of the team that Edinburgh have played, and this is the type of team. I've mentioned Edinburgh in dispatches before and saying, look, they're a side that can go right into the playoffs. If they had all these players available, they could cause anyone any problems. So I think Edinburgh may be too good, but I'm optimistic that Munster, if they get it, if they build on that little bit of momentum they have, who knows, they might cause a problem.
It's becoming important for them to get more points on the board as well. You're going to be back on Monday morning with reviews of all that.
Connacht are playing Benetton tomorrow as well at home, so they've got to win to try and get up the table, given last week. So they're in the same situation now. Games won as Munster, games lost.
Johnny Sexton been linked with Connacht in one of the papers this morning as the new head coach when Andy Friend leaves. That'll be a conversation for another day, Quiddy. That's a whole can of worms that we'll have to save some time for. Thanks a million for coming in.
Cheers.
Enjoy the weekend. OTBAM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. We're going to be back on Monday. Quinny's going to be here. It'll be Shane alongside Ger and the beloved Gillette Labs performance ranking. Shane?
It'll be tough to pick this weekend. I'd say there's a lot happening. So the World Cup gives us plenty. We have the URC as well.
A to Z. We're going to be reacting to all of that. No doubt it'll be a bumper weekend of World Cup games as well, into the knockout stages, of course. Former Man City defender Neda Manua is going to be on the line to discuss all of that, and plenty of reactions to the URC. Right now, have a good weekend, but right now it's the OTBAM week. We're closing off with the former Republic of Ireland international Damien Delaney chatting to Nathan about a terribly exciting day at the World Cup yesterday.
Good evening, Damien.
Hi, Nate. How are you?
Have you looked at the replay? Have you looked at 18 replays? Souness ain't happy about this, I can tell you.
What's Souness saying?
That the ball was out.
It's hard. It's very hard to tell. And I presume the rule, I don't know, rules change. It's the whole of the ball and the whole of the line. I think that used to be the rule. I think that still is the rule.
That's always been the rule.
Yeah,
that's never going to change.
There might have been a subtle change there.
I was saying it's probably a little bit similar to the John Stones incident, Manchester City against Liverpool a few years ago, that people say was the one that won Manchester City the title, where 9/10 of the ball, if not more, is over the line.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's no part, because the ball is rolling along the ground there's no part of the ball actually touching the line, but the outside curve of the ball is maybe still just over it. Watching the coverage there during the news, Peter Walton was on giving his expert opinion. So I thought actually initially that there would be that technology that would tell you exactly on all lines on the pitch whether it was over, whether it was inside or out. It seems that's not the case, but he was making the point that the goal line technology, because it was so close to the post, that may actually have helped the VAR, and they may have been able to see through that whether the ball went over the line. Either way, it's never going to be overturned.
No, it's not. And do you know what? In fairness, it has to be clear and obvious error. Nobody called it at the time. It's ridiculously close. And I think the correct decision, just let the goal stand, unless there's irrefutable evidence that it definitely all the ball crossed all of the line, then I think it is probably the correct decision.
Listen, Damon, there's nothing I hate more than nations going on about how they were wronged about some decision that cost them about the World Cup. Just get over it and move on.
I know where this is going.
Get over it and move on. So it was an absolutely insane couple of hours. I was watching the first half thinking this is a quiet night at the World Cup, relatively straightforward. Both Germany and Spain winning 1-0 at half time. We'll get on to Germany first, but Spain start this by putting 7 goals past Costa Rica. We're looking at Pedri and Gavi and thinking a new generation has arrived that's going to dominate, maybe this World Cup, dominate football over the coming years. And they've just been incredibly flat over the last couple of games, particularly tonight. Was that a bit of complacency, maybe sparked by the immaturity of a couple of young players who think it comes too easy?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to. I mean, they were imperious in their opening game. They were incredibly good, and then they have a really, really good 1-1 draw against Germany, and then they're kind of in a funny position where they kind of, they think they need a draw to get through. Then they get their noses in front, and Japan just wouldn't let it go. They kept at it, and I tell you what, at 9:10 tonight, they were out of the World Cup. After 60 minutes, when Costa Rica took the lead against Germany, they were out. So they went from being like a contender or someone's thinking that they can be the ones to go on and win this to being out of the World Cup, and they just scrape in by the skin of their teeth. And then you're thinking, could they go and get an equaliser against Morocco and give Germany a leg up? And then that would have meant Germany would have made it. But then you look at who they're playing in the round of the last 16. I wonder, did someone do the math and think, would we prefer to play Croatia? Would we prefer to play Morocco? And did they just kind of just sit on what they had, and they realised that, there's no point in us, trying to go and get an equaliser here, which would put us top of the group. I think all my math is correct there, Nathan. I'm not sure. But
yeah, no, you're right. It did. Now, in fairness to Spain, it did feel as though they kept pushing till the end. They were still creating half chances right up till the end of the game. We haven't had time to do the statistics going all the way back to 1930. I do wonder how often the thing of, we're avoiding Croatia, we're getting Morocco, how often that actually works out for teams long term. Like Spain, you're as flat as you are tonight. Morocco have just finished top of the group. Maybe it's not that straightforward. Like Croatia, been average enough so far as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is like, for me, this is where the World Cup gets good. I mean, it's nights like tonight. It was my World Cup experience for the last week or so. Has been kind of come in, watch a couple of games, watch a little bit here and there, watch maybe a highlight show late. But it was very, very kind of passive. But I think tonight was the night where I was actually stood in front of the TV and trying to do the math in my head of who needs what. And I think this was probably the moment that sparked me into this World Cup now, because it is do or die, especially for a lot of teams now for the third group game, and obviously the knockout stages start. So I think now is probably the moment where my interest will be peaked, and I will be scheduling my day around getting home to watch World Cup games.
What do you make of the decision to play Rodri at the back?
I didn't watch the Spain game tonight, so I'm not entirely sure. I only just saw a brief few highlights. Is that where he played at centre back?
Alongside Pau Torres.
Yeah, interesting that.
They obviously have Sergio Busquets in the middle of midfield.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. And I suppose maybe who's Eric Garcia was the centre-back, I think, that's in their squad. 100% sure about that. But, I mean, Rodri's more than capable to play at centre-back. But it's a big ask when that's not his natural position. But maybe he's been doing well in training and he just wanted to get him in the team. But I'll watch the highlights of the game later and see how that one panned out. But I think that could be the first and last experiment like that. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
So what about Germany? Obviously, because of their history at the World Cup, it will seem as a massive shock that they go out in the group stage. But German football at international level, it feels as though it's been a struggle for quite a while now. Is it just when you look at that 11 that there isn't the quality?
Yeah, I think there's certain amounts of quality in that German team, but I don't think they're stacked with 11 real top tier players. I can't wait to see how Musiala develops over the next number of years. He was brilliant tonight. That was the game I watched, the Germany game. I thought he was incredibly good. And he's 19 years of age, and he was the one that was driving Germany forward. He was the one that was creating chances. But then you kind of look at the centre-back area. Sula, we're always kind of not sure about him. He always seems to get it done. And you have Round playing at left-back. You look at Sane. How much has he got to give? I've watched a lot of his games in the Nations League this year. He never looks too I won't say bothered, but he never looks too motivated. He never looks like he's killing himself or he's doing all that he can do. He's just comfortably playing in third gear, which is adequate. Gnabry, maybe put Gnabry in that type of a bracket, but you always think there's more in him as well. And then you look at Thomas Muller, as good and all as he is, should he be anywhere near that German team? But if they're not producing the young players, or the young players haven't developed quick enough to push these players, but I could imagine there being a big inquest post this World Cup and a kind of a rejig of German football and a kind of a reintegration of a certain type of player and a rediscovering their identity, because they do just look a little bit patchy, and I think it probably all just got away from Hansi Flick in the build up to it, and there was probably an attitude of it'll be all right on the night, possibly with them. But it wasn't, and they really did pay dearly for that opening day defeat to Japan. I mean, they got a credible draw against Spain, did reasonably well, and tonight they were pretty good. I mean, they deserved to win comfortably. I know Costa Rica took the lead, but they were really good tonight. They hit the post, they created loads of chances. Then Musiala was incredible. I think they had 24, 25 shots.
Was he playing as the number 10 tonight?
Yeah, and he was just so good, honestly. Outstanding.
What's he doing?
Dribbling. He's got these twinkle toes in the box where he's just driving forward, running forward, a real engine on him, powerful running, dynamic running, arriving late in the box, travelling with the ball, picking it up, jinking on the edge of the opposition box, taking people on, trying to get shots away, a real energy about him. And for a kid that's 19 years of age, his development is something I'm going to keep a close eye on over the next number of years, because I think he's going right to the top.
That German revamp would need to happen pretty quickly, because they're hosting the European Championship in 18 months' time. So they'll need to get it together, and you'd imagine it probably is the end of the road for quite a few of those players. Are you a two-screener on nights like this? Are you flicking between the two of them, or do you like to concentrate?
No. I like to concentrate. No, I know with the permutations, I was keeping an eye on my phone, what was just on one of the apps, just what of the scores that were coming in. But I'd rather sit down and watch the highlights of the Spain game later.
That's what it's all about.
He said, I'm enough to be playing now. If my missus walked in and saw me watching one on a laptop, one on a TV, and the potting mat on the floor in front of me.
There's only so much you can concentrate on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think you were probably open enough beforehand that you weren't sure what to make of this World Cup, and obviously there's so much football, it's been so relentless that you probably hadn't found the buzz for it. Now that you're finding your way into it, what has stood out for you over the last few days?
I suppose teams. I kind of had this kind of theory that maybe a lot of teams are struggling to switch gears, from the short turnaround. There was no build-up time for the teams coming into it. They all played in their domestic leagues one weekend, and the following weekend they're in Qatar. And ordinarily, teams would have 4 or 5 week build-up, and there was a chance to get into it. They had lots of work done on the training ground. They were away on these camps, and everybody was fully focused. I just think it was a little bit kind of rushed. All the teams were crowded in. They flew out to Qatar, getting themselves settled, were training. There was no time just to kind of to switch gears, is kind of the phrase I'd use. And that's why a lot of teams got caught cold, the likes of Germany and Argentina.
Well, Roberto Martinez, right from the start, even when they won their opening game, was saying he felt it was a major factor for Belgium that they only arrived on the Tuesday. And at that stage, he was quite positive that they would build into the tournament and get better as it went along. Obviously, they were knocked out today, so that wasn't the case. So is it something you would expect that the teams that have made the knockout stages, they're not going to have much time in the training ground?
No, they're going to get it going. As Roberto Martinez says, we're there. They want to build into the tournament. They want to. Now they're starting to have their team meetings. To spend a lot of time together, immerse themselves in the environment. And I suppose with the likes of Argentina, that opening day defeat would really have focused their minds and just thought, wow, we ain't got any time here to build into us. Belgium got caught, and Germany got caught. Argentina seemed to have just gotten away with it, and I would expect them to get up to speed. But I just think it's just a case of the players just getting mentally focused on the World Cup. There's an awful lot happening, media duties. It would have been whirlwind from one weekend to the next. and it's two completely different environments. And I suppose the ones that have kind of survived that, the likes of Argentina, they will get themselves going, and the players will be able to get focused and get stronger. So even after the opening day defeats, I was always kind of the opinion that these teams, I wouldn't discount them just yet. When you look back through history, there's been plenty of teams have lost their opening game and gone on to win the World Cup, or lost a group game or an important game and gone on to win the World Cup. So look, I just think that it's a unique experience. It's a Winter World Cup. There's so many variables, and it's new for everybody, players included. So I kind of agree with Roberto Martinez there.
It didn't work out for Roberto. He stood down as Belgian manager after the game today. We were debating earlier about the golden generation of Belgian players as to how much they'd achieved, finishing third at the last World Cup, been beaten by the eventual winners at the last Euros and the last World Cup, and whether we expected too much from them. Obviously, so many of their best players have played their best football in the Premier League, and maybe that skews our view on what they can achieve. When you look at that Belgian side over the last 5-6 years, would a greater manager than Roberto Martinez have elevated them to a higher achievement?
Well, I think the thing that always stuck with that Belgian team is how often they were world number one. They seem to be world number one for about 5 years, from maybe 2015 right through to 2020. They always were there or thereabouts. They had impeccable qualifying records. They never could get it done. And look, I think 2016, 2018 and 2020, those tournaments were that golden generation. Nobody really expected anything of Belgium. Now, I think they probably would be entitled to expect to get out of the group. But you could see that the likes of Witsel, a lot of miles on the clock there, Vertonghen and Alderweireld, they're no longer plying their trade in the Premier League. They've kind of over the hill a little bit, and they're kind of on the downward curve of their career. Kevin De Bruyne can never really seem to get it going for Belgium in the same way that he does in Man City.
Why is that? Because John Giles was on earlier saying tonight was the perfect comparison of, on the one side you have De Bruyne, on the other side, you have Luka Modric, who is coming from a similar situation in Real Madrid, where while he's still surrounded by very good players, Croatia nowhere near the calibre, yet he drives that team, he controls that team. Whereas Kevin De Bruyne publicly has undermined his team over the past week by saying publicly that they're too old, and also on the pitch never feels as though he's going to grab the game by the scruff of the neck when he's in a Belgian jersey.
Yeah, I think that's probably just him feeling comfortable at Manchester City. It's his environment, it's what he works in, and maybe he's just finding it hard to transfer that form from his club to the country. And also,
can the truly great players not do that?
I would agree with you. Yes, the truly great players could come in and transcend all that, like Diego Maradona in 1986. I'm not putting Kevin De Bruyne in Maradona bracket before anyone says that, but that type of personality can grab a team. But if we're being honest, that Belgian team was finished after the Euros in 2020, and they haven't recycled in the same way that we're talking Germany are going to have to do now. But I suppose Roberto Martinez was probably more in hope than anything else that these guys had one more tournament in them. But as soon as you saw their squad, you could tell that it was nowhere near it. Especially when you look at their centre backs, their form was patchy enough. In the lead up to the World Cup, I know they came to Dublin and we got a good result against them, but they weren't the marauding world number one team. And their generation passed them by. I think he stepped down tonight, I think Martinez. So somebody else is going to have to come in there, and I hope to God that they haven't neglected their underage systems, and they can build again and hopefully build a team capable of contending.
Poor old Romelu Lukaku has been injured pretty much all season. He comes on for the second half and he has the chances. He hits the post at one stage. There's a header, quite a similar situation actually to the goal that was given for Japan. Kevin De Bruyne pulled it back and it was over the line. That one was headed over the crossbar, and then a strange one where it just bounces off his chest 3 yards from goal. Lukaku, it feels in a way, sums up that generation and the confusion around how good they were and how great they were. He's been so brilliant at times during his career, but struggled to deliver on the big occasion. I presume you played against him plenty of times. At the sort of forward you'd worry about the night before about what he was going to do to you?
You would. I mean, he was obviously incredibly strong. The times I played against him was when he was at Everton, and obviously at Manchester United later. But at Everton, he was fit. He looks like the type of player that if he's not playing or training regularly, his fitness or his shape falls away very, very quickly. We all remember those shots at Manchester United over his time there, where he was chronically out of shape. Visibly, he wasn't in the conditions he should be in. So he looks like the type of guy that if he's out injured or he's out of favour, his off-field life deteriorates, and that's why he gets into that type of condition. And obviously he's not been involved much in Italy this year, and I think that's it. He's the type of guy that has to be playing week in, week out, made to feel like he's the main man. Fans love him. That's what he got at Inter when he went and he had that spell there under Antonio Conte. Antonio Conte is the type of manager that could get into Lukaku and make him feel brilliant and give him the motivation to stay in shape. So look, he's a decent player, Lukaku. He's a handful. I would never say that it was ever easy playing against him. He was incredibly strong, quick, direct. But obviously he seems temperamental, not in a deliberate type of way, but in kind of, mentally, he's obviously, what's the term I would use here? It fluctuates for whatever reason. When he's good, but when he's bad, everything falls apart.
Will there be a lot of players like that if they're not at 100% peak fitness? There's too big a fall off?
No, very rare. You'd get that. I mean, most players now are just it's bred into them. That they look after themselves, even when you're not in the team or you're not playing well. It's just a natural thing where you stay focused. But I suppose maybe he's had that in him, but he's always scored goals, or someone would always look at him and say, if we get him fit and we get him firing, he can be a world-class centre forward. He proved that at Inter. That year they won the league, and at times at Everton he was unplayable. So look, not really, but I suppose centre forwards that score goals would always be given more of a pass than anyone else. Managers will always work hard to get someone, because finding a goal scorer is so difficult to do. So managers would obviously be a bit more patient with him and think that I'll be the one that can get him going. But when things aren't going well for him, it looks like he just falls apart.
So England are through to the last 16, play Senegal on Sunday evening. Conversation feels somewhat similar to Euro 2020, and that draw against USA, a massive negative reaction to the style of football, to the fact that Phil Foden wasn't in the team. Have England developed in any way since Euro 2020?
No, Gareth Southgate has his way of playing. He has his ethos, I suppose, of tournament football. And he just does enough. He will never go out and open up and go after a game and throw down a marker and say, we're England, we're here, and we're contenders. He will always plot his way, pick a team that he thinks will get a result, and he believes that one goal is enough. The Iran game aside, they came in and absolutely bulldozed them. Then it went back to the USA game, where it was like, a draw probably gets us through, or a draw will be enough. And then the Wales game, it was, the first 60 minutes until they scored the goal, it was a pretty drab affair. And, England were just not taking any risks. They weren't taking any risks or risking anything in terms of Wales getting a goal, because he knows how important confidence is, and he knows that if they can stay solid at the back, they have goal scorers, they have good attackers. But he's not going to open up and just blitz it for a variety of reasons, really.
So is Harry Maguire a good defender in the right system?
Yeah, and that's why. Like as soon as he picked a squad and Gareth Southgate picked Harry Maguire, you knew straight away that he wasn't going to deviate. I think the crime for England was the fact that they didn't think, let's go and get Tomori. And I know Mark Way, he played a couple of games as well, or they didn't look at that and say, we need to find a prototype modern day centre-back that's comfortable in open spaces, comfortable on the halfway line in a 1v1, 2v2, because that way then you can play with one number 6 in Declan Rice, you can play with, Trent Alexander-Arnold. It's why Trent doesn't play well for England. We saw in lots of Nations League games leading up to this, where he played a flat back 5, I think it was Italy in one of the games, and he played Saka he was listed as a left wing back, but he played left back in a back 5, right next to Harry Maguire, and he never once looked like he was getting forward. So I think that's the default mode for Gareth Southgate, that he will just say, I have Harry Kane, one of the best goal scorers in world football. If I can keep a clean sheet, keep it tight, I know I'll get goals, but I'm not going to put us in a position where, especially now we're in the knockout phases, where a bad half and you're going home. And if he decides, against Senegal, I'm going to open up here and I'm going to take the game with a scruff of the neck, I'm going to dominate possession, create chances, and we're going to force the issue here. and then they get hit in the counter-attack by the Senegalese, and now all of a sudden it's panic stations. Maybe something similar to, what happened with Roy Hodgson against Iceland in 2016, where it was just like a goal out of the blue and England couldn't recover, and all of a sudden panic set in, and they didn't have the wherewithal to recover. So I just think that moving forward for England, they have so many attacking number 8s, number 10s, inverted wingers, whatever you want to do to get all them in the team. You need, fullbacks that are going to join in, Trent Alexander, Luke Shaw. If you want to play with 3 number 10s in Mount, Foden and Grealish, and then Harry Kane up top, or you want to have some variation like that. So maybe like a 4-1 or a 4-3, whatever you want to call it, and then get Harry Kane at the top end of the pitch. That would be the best way to go about it for England. But for that, I think, you would need Tomori in the team. He's certainly capable of doing that. I've watched a lot of him at AC Milan. But I just think that, they'll get by Senegal. They'll do just enough. Then they'll play France in the last 8. And I would bet my bottom dollar it'll be a flat back 5, and I mean a flat back 5 with Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice as the 2 number 6s. And then they'll play Raheem Sterling and Mason Mount and Harry Kane. And it'll be, similar to what they did.
So you don't think Phil Foden's performance against Wales is going to guarantee him his place for the rest of the tournament?
He might play.
Do you go along with that argument that some people have made that there's no other team in the tournament that wouldn't play Phil Foden, that wouldn't play arguably their best player?
Yeah, we see Phil Foden might play when he plays 1 number 8. I'm just saying Mount, Grealish or Foden. Foden might play. But I think Gareth Southgate will be so focused on defensive side of it, when we're out of possession, falling back into a defensive-minded position where even if you're not tackling, you're filling passing lanes, or you're just doing a job on stopping a number 6, changing the play, something like that.